The Journey in Marvel Magician. Chapter 41. Li Feng understood what Mordu was struggling with. It was nothing more than the collision of old and new ideas that made Mordu feel a little at a loss. The evil, stitching monster, in my impression knew that the devil's goal was himself, but still chose to rescue Leonore, only because the two short legs could not run Gideon, who could fly. In the end, Leonore was used by Gideon as Frankenstein's. Replace the notebook. Now, in order to prevent Nobilis from obtaining the secret of the resurrected corpse, the righteous Stonewing finally decided to kill Adam to prevent the devil from causing harm to the world. Who is right among these? Who is wrong? If it was before, Mordu would kill Adam without saying a word, but now. As for the changes in Mordu's inner world, Li Feng was speechless and helpless, and he was a little relieved. I am gratified because Li Feng felt that he had completed a task that Ancient One did not clearly explain, and changed Mordu's extreme thoughts. It can't be said that it has changed completely, but it has already shaken Mordu's heart. Silent, because when is the time now? The Stonewing beast is about to find the devil's lair and kill it, but Mordu doubts life at this time. Patting Mordu on the shoulder, Li Feng smiled and said, "Since God allows Adam to exist in his hometown, it means that he has other arrangements for Adam. How can he easily let Stonewing beast kill him? If you haven't figured it out, maybe you should sort it out." The magic weapon enters the devil's lair, venting the confused emotions. Mordu thought for a while, raised his head and said to Li Feng, "Perhaps, but I do want to kill some demons to calm down my mood." After that, Mordor got up and walked out of the room, preparing some props to better hunt the devil. Li Feng looked down at the long knife on his waist, put the magic book in his pocket, and muttered with the Solomon's key, upside down, "Perhaps, I should also find some devil Luoluo to practice swordsmanship." On the other side, Adam, who left the monastery, felt a little abnormal before returning to his dilapidated room. Until he saw that there was no Wade in the room, Adam immediately realized that Wade was dangerous and hurriedly picked up the Frankenstein hidden in the corner. Experiment notes, ready to find Wade. In the distance, Gideon saw Adam put Frankenstein's notes into his arms and immediately launched a sneak attack. The battle between the two quickly ended, and finally Adam sent Gideon back to heaven. At the same time, he also understood that the Stonewing beast was ready to hunt itself in order to destroy Nobilis's plan to resurrect the corpse. As a matter of urgency, Adam felt that he had to find Wade first. After all, Wade was the first partner he recognized, and he needed to protect Wade's safety. Adam, who hurried to the devil's lair, easily found the clue that Wade had been to the devil's lair. Adam understands that there are too many demons in the devil's lair, and he is looking for death by breaking into a fight alone. He needs allies. Originally, the enemy's enemy was the best ally, but now, the Stonewing beast is clearly on the hostile list, but Adam still puts his idea on the Stonewing beast. From the heart, Adam still hopes that the two will die together, and save the two. Fang Renma came to kill him when he was fine. After burning Frankenstein's experimental notes, Adam deliberately let the Stonewing beast find himself, preparing to lead the Stonewing beast to the devil's lair. Li Feng, who was waiting for news in the hall with the same equipment as Mordu, saw a Stonewing beast rushing into the hall and said to Leonore, "Queen, I found the monster." Leonore glanced at the Stonewing beast in the hall, waved his hand and turned into the Stonewing beast prototype and said, "Go." Li Feng watched a stone-winged beast fly into the sky with its wings, scratched his head, and whispered to Mordor beside him, "They can fly, what should we do?" "Open the portal." Mordu turned his head and asked curiously, "Do you know where the devil's lair is?" "Remember the old castle-like building we saw when we first came to this world?" Li Feng said with contempt. "Didn't you find that there are so many demons there? Where else is it that is not the devil's nest? Is it possible for the devil to hide? Are they in the sewer? They are demons and not mice. This is what you told me at the beginning, but now you have forgotten. Not only your mind has changed, but your mind has also changed." Mordo smiled awkwardly. After Li Feng's explanation, he also recalled what had happened. He stretched out a hand to open a portal and said to Li Feng as he drew out the magic weapon, "Are you ready? The carnival time is up." Li Feng drew a long knife and shrugged his shoulders and muttered, "I don't have the strength of yours to have a party. I'd better find some weaker demons to hone their sword skills." After speaking, Li Feng crossed the portal and came to the roof opposite the devil's lair. Li Feng looked around and looked at Mordo, who was observing the devil's lair, and said, "I thought you would open the portal directly to the door of the devil's lair." Mordor rolled his eyes at Li Feng and said, "When the number of demons is unknown, I just broke into the opponent's lair. Do you think I am Master Ancient One and can ignore the number? Wait for the stone wing beast to come and we will join the battlefield." Quote. After a long time, Adam finally took the stone wing beast army to the devil's lair. Li Feng crouched on the edge of the roof, looking at Leonore on the opposite side, and then at Adam surrounded by a group of people in black suits. Li Feng said he was puzzled. He saw that Leonore couldn't see that these men in suits were demons at all. "You said that stonewing beasts and demons have been dealing with each other for so many years, and it's fine if they can't distinguish between humans and demons, but the devil, they all know how to use the power of science to strengthen themselves. Looking at your stone-wing beasts, candles are lit in the monastery, and the weapons used are swords. Please, the humans around you have undergone earth-shaking changes over the centuries. Don't you have any ideas for change? At least it's okay to install some electric lights in the monastery." Li Feng can only sigh. She-Beast's brain is rigid enough. Will he train a few scientists by himself to die? With the power of the stone wing beast, one person holding a demon-modified Gatling machine gun will not take a big breath, let alone thousands of demons. I am afraid that even the term, devil, will be used in the machine gun. Disappear from the human world under threat. Li Feng slandered the stone wing beast's old-fashioned, turning his head and said to Mordo, "How do we get down? Open the portal or take the stairs." Following Adam's death of the first demon, Leonore had realized that this was the devil's lair that Adam had said, and immediately ordered the stonewing beast to join the battle. Mordo got up and said to Li Feng, "You were right. The reason God allowed Adam to exist is because he wanted Adam to guide the stone-wing beast to the devil's lair and completely destroy the devil in the world." Li Feng blinked inexplicably. He felt that Mordo's brain might have been overstimulated. It seemed to be a completely eliminate the devil in the world. What are you kidding about? The mission that Stonewing hasn't completed for centuries depends on Adam. I rely on. Li Feng stared at the stone-winged beasts that killed the demons. Compared with the stone-winged beasts who used swords to kill the devil in the past, they now have some magic patterns on their upper bodies that are familiar to Li Feng. Li Feng can be sure that these magic patterns are in Theosolomon spell. It appeared in the book. In addition, there are two stone-winged beasts hovering high in the sky, holding a copy of the Key of Solomon in their hands and chanting aloud spells. Li Feng looked towards Mordor speechlessly. "So you mean to eliminate the devil of light? You mean that I gave Theosolomon's key to the stonewing beast? Adam's role is just to lead the way." The orange-yellow portal suddenly appeared among the demons, making the demons stunned. They raised their heads and looked at the two stone-winged beasts who were chanting, thinking, "What's the situation? It's chanting again and it's a circle of light. Stonewing beast doesn't play with swords and magic. When did the boss tell us?" When Li Feng wielded a long knife that ignited a raging fire to join the team to kill the devil, Adam rolled his eyes and was still on the roof. Leonore then ran away after killing a devil. Don't Stonewing beast want to see how many human corpses Nobilici has collected? Then follow along. Leonore noticed Adam's leaving figure, and cast his eyes on the devil, who was either destroyed or weakened into a soft-footed shrimp. Leonore felt that victory was at hand and turned his head and said, "Follow Adam, he will take us to find the one waiting to be resurrected." Corpse. After a while, Leonore high in the sky saw Adam rushing out of a house. She noticed that at the door of the house, several black body bags were randomly discarded on the ground. Leonore thought about it, waving his wings and landing next to the body bag. Leonore wanted to come. Since there are corpses parked at the door of this house, how many corpses will there be in the house? Wouldn't this building be the legendary crematorium? She didn't believe that there was such a thing as a crematorium on the site of Nobilici. The interior of the building has long been dug deep by Nobilis. Leonore looked pale and looked at the endless human corpses like commodities hanging on a cargo rack, quietly waiting for Nobilis to be resurrected by scientific means. An army of evil spirits was summoned from hell to possess these resurrected corpses. When Leonore was following Adam, Li Feng, who felt that the devil was too weak to hone his sword skills, quietly left the team and followed Adam. To be precise, Li Feng used Leonore from the high-altitude flight as his navigation and trod on the ground. Following Leonore, until Leonore entered the building where the corpse was stored. Li Feng quietly walked out of the dark corner and threw a scroll full of magic circles on the ground. The purpose of Li Feng's trip was not only to hone his sword skills, but also to try to capture a devil. Originally, when he killed the devil with the Stonewing Beast, Li Feng had a chance to capture a devil, but Li Feng was not sure after he did so. What would Stonewing Beast and Mordor think and do? Regarding the direction of Adam's departure, Li Feng felt a trace of regret. Speaking of it, my strength is still not enough. In Li Feng's initial vision, Nobilis, the Devil Prince, was the best trophy, but considering the strengths of both sides, Li Feng felt that his little rookie still honestly captured a weak, but scientifically capable one. Devil. I can't be sure that the sealed devil magic array I made can seal Nobilis. If I can't seal it, then I'll play it big, but I remember that there was a devil who greeted me. Physical body. In case I had just walked in front of Nobilis, that guy would see that I have time and space abilities, and my mana is still the dark side, so it's blame for not being possessed. After Adam guided Leonore to the building full of corpses, he hurried into the Wade laboratory. He knew that Nobilici wanted to resurrect the corpse and could only rely on Wade reading the complete Frankenstein experiment notes. Now that Wade is in the hands of Nobilis, plus the devil's impatience to judge, Adam feels that at the moment Wade and Nobilis will definitely carry out experiments to resurrect the corpse in the laboratory. Holding two sharp blades, Adam rushed into the laboratory brainlessly, facing Nobilici alone. Nobilis was surprised, and turned aside the weapon in Adam's hand and felt a little funny. Who gave you the courage to face the noble devil prince? Or Frankenstein didn't help you activate your brain when he resurrected you? As Nobilis walked into Adam, Adam relaxed his vigilance and said, Frankenstein, it's great that you can come back. Adam said with a fierce look, I am coming back to destroy you and your experiments. The Stonewing Beast Monastery will exist forever, and humans will not perish. Nobilis raised his brows and said lightly, I don't know how many laboratories like this are in the world. As for monasteries and humans. While showing the prototype of the devil, Nobilis said, no one can stop them from perishing with you, the monster. Regardless of Adam being born as a suture monster, his power speed is far from Superman, but after Nobilici showed the devil's posture, Adam only drew 3 lines on Nobilici's abdomen, making the wound form a symbol of 3. It was pushed far away by Nobilici. On the side, Wade, who had found the opportunity to stop the experiment, hadn't finished operating the computer before being choked by Nobilici and said, it's too late, Dr. Wade, we have useful data. After speaking, Nobilis threw Wade at a machine that was arcing. When Adam saw that the only partner who agreed with him was about to be burned to death by the arc, he hurriedly got up and flew towards Wade, pushing him away from the dangerous arc. Nobilis thought it was a bit funny. A monster was still thinking about soaking eyebrows in the process of fighting me, which looked down on me too. Nobilici walked up to Adam who was hit by the arc, pinched Adam's neck with one hand, and painted magic lines on his forehead with blood, so that the evil spirit could be on Adam's body, and said, I know you will come back, you have always been lonely, I know what you want, I will make hundreds, thousands of you. I have been collecting human corpses for centuries, as long as the corpses are resurrected, I can summon an army from hell, and you will be a member of my army. You will not be alone. After speaking, Nobilis lifted Adam and chanted aloud the spell to summon the Wraith Spirit. On the other side, as soon as Li Feng laid the scrolls and hid them, he saw an old man with dry skin and gray hair, wearing a simple biochemical protective suit, holding a mobile hard disk and hurriedly walking out of the building. Li Feng grinned silently, and while walking out of the hiding place, he stretched out his hand and snapped his fingers, only to see that the rule glass wall instantly appeared in front of the old man. The old man was stunned, looking back at the long knife in Li Feng's hand, pretending to be panicked, and said, Who are you? I'm just an old man who takes care of the corpse, please let me go. Li Feng pointed to the unruly glass walls around and said, This is a mirrored space. Without my permission, you will not be able to get out in your life, let alone go back to hell. Pointing to the scroll on the ground again, he said, Now I give you 2 choices, either go into the seal on your own initiative, or be crippled by me, and then sealed by me. The old man clearly knew that Stonewing Beast could not see the real body of the devil. He felt that the young man with a small belly in front of him could not see whether he was a devil or a human. As for the seal, he was just fooling himself. Thinking of this, the old man said with a bitter face and trembling, "I don't know what you are talking about." The old man's words were not finished yet. Li Feng had already shot the playing cards in his hand at the old man, and the old man perceived the energy on the playing cards, and subconsciously turned sideways to avoid being cut and photographed with a reaction far beyond ordinary people. Li Feng blew the whistle, and after suppressing the flame on the long knife, he said, "Wow, see if you can be so smart at your age. Is there any secret to longevity? Telling it will make me live a few more years. Also, I know who you are. The experiment of resurrecting the dead body was done in Wade's laboratory. In fact, you were under the order of Nobilici and kept copying Drive. Wade's experiment. I know that you were in the studio. My computer is connected to Wade's computer so that you can complete the experiment of resurrecting the corpse simultaneously." Li Feng pointed at the mobile USB flash drive in the old man's hand with a long knife, and said, "If I guessed right, the little thing recorded the data of the resurrected corpse, right?" The old man knew Li Feng's posture had lost its effect. What kind of identity? Mobile U-Disc, the other party knows. The old man simply revealed the ugly prototype of the devil and said, "When you go to hell, I will let you live long, and I will put you on the fire of hell forever." After that, the old man rushed towards Li Feng, and Li Feng shot a poker card again without even thinking about it. While raising his knife towards the old man, Li Feng was still secretly preparing a time spell. What he wanted was to seal a demon who had a sense and could communicate with each other instead of a flaming devil soul that couldn't communicate. Therefore, Li Feng paid attention to his hand when he slashed at the old man. He only chopped off the old man's hands and feet without hurting the old man. Head and heart. Don't look at the old man's gray hair and age, but his skills are much stronger than those of Luo Luo Devil. If it weren't for the long knife in Li Feng's hand that could hurt the old man, it wouldn't necessarily be true who died and who lived by fighting with bare hands. After another confrontation, Li Feng carefully avoided an attack from the old man, and quickly swung his knife to force the old man to avoid the blade in the direction he expected, and at the same time shot the prepared slowing time spell on the old man. When the old man watched his actions like a slow motion in the movie, Li Feng quickly cut off the old man's hands and feet. Before the old man escaped from the time-slowing spell, Li Feng immediately activated the scroll on the ground. Under Li Feng's control, an inexplicable suction from the scroll sucked the dull old man into the scroll. Seeing that the old man had been sealed, Li Feng let out a long sigh of relief, picked up the mobile U-Disc on the ground, tied the scroll and hid it in his arms. As soon as Li Feng opened the portal and walked out of the mirrored space, he saw the red light in the building in front of him. Li Feng was stunned, and then he said, "A red light represents an evil spirit. Don't look at you although there are many, but there is Harry Use. Don't you know that Leonore and the others now have a copy of the Key of Solomon? Are you going to the world roar to breathe air for a few seconds before being sent back to hell?" Before Li Feng finished complaining, he vaguely heard a stone-winged beast in the building chanting the spell on Solomon's key, loudly. After a while, Li Feng, who was sitting on the steps of the gate to recover his mana, felt something was wrong. Although the stone-winged beast's spell wiped out many weak wraiths, some powerful wraiths still constantly emerged from hell. Li Feng instantly understood what was going on. Solomon's key, in Stonewing Beast's hand, was a copy after all. Compared with the original work containing magic power, the ability of the spell was weakened a lot. Thinking of this, Li Feng got up and ran into the building, looking for Leonore's figure, holding up the original version of Solomon's key in his hand, and shouting, "Queen Leonore, take Solomon's key, and recite the spell." Quote. Leonore, who was busy destroying the corpses to prevent these corpses from being possessed by the devil, suddenly heard Li Feng's voice, and subconsciously looked at the book in Li Feng's hand. Go to the page of restraining evil spirits. Soon, Leonore held the Solomon's key in both hands and chanted a spell on the fireball representing the soul of the devil. The first person holding the Key of Solomon to recite the mantra was Ophir. Li Feng remembered that when he was chanting the mantra, his whole body turned from gray to white, and the mantra of the stone-winged beast queen in front of him was extraordinary. The first is holiness. I don't know why. Li Feng looked at Leonore, who was chanting the curse, and he felt that Leonore was the most beautiful woman in the world. The second is the change of Leonore's body. If Leonore in the form of the Stonewing Beast can still see a bit of plaster appearance, now that the wings are slowly growing feathers, the skin has become crystal clear. At this moment, it seems that Leonor is no longer a stone-wing beast, but a real angel. After all, Li Feng is a magician with strong mental power, and when he sensed the strangeness, he immediately aimed his gaze at the corpse. While stretching out his hand to wipe the cold sweat on his forehead, Li Feng cursed in his heart. What kind of operation? Leonor has become the same as Angel. How did you come out of temptation ability? I almost did it. Believe in religion, abandon the magician identity to become a pastor. The god of this world, too, is Leonor your daughter or granddaughter? Knowing that she is about to be besieged by evil spirits gave Leonor so much energy. Now let alone send these evil spirits to hell. I guess under this wave of energy, these evil spirits all stayed on the earth and turned into fly ashes. The problem is that the earth does not lack this little fertilizer. Can you please take back some of the energy? I was frightened. The energy God gave to Leonor made Li Feng, who used the dark energy, feel uncomfortable. He felt that God was not only preparing to destroy this wave of demons, but also preparing to destroy himself, Li Feng. The corner of his eye was slightly beating and turned and ran out of the building. There is no way in this place. Stay, I kindly send you Thea Solomon's key. Is it easy for me? Not long after running out of the building, 5 groups of huge amounts of soul fireballs soared into the sky, combined into a larger soul fireball in the air, and rushed to the underground of the building where the corpses were stored. The corner of Li Feng's mouth twitched, and he patted his chest and muttered to himself, Ma Dan, I almost forgot about this. What did Li Feng forget? He forgot that when Adam was about to be possessed by the evil spirit, the soul suddenly broke out of the shell and drove the evil spirit out of the body, and took a piece of metal on the ground to stab Nabilisi, and walked along Nabilisi's lower abdomen. Draw to the Adam's apple, causing Nabilisi's previous 3 symbol to become a Feng line symbol that restrains the devil. As soon as the Feng character sign was completed, Nabilis immediately turned into 5 soul fireballs and was sent to hell. As for why Nabilisi can be killed by drawing the Feng symbol, Li Feng said that the world rule is, what can he do? Nabilis deserves to be a distinguished prince among the demons, and the movement caused by going home is in line with his worth. The other demons have quietly turned into soul fireballs and found a hole to drill even if they went home. What about Nabilisi? I saw huge amounts of soul fireball destroying its own lair when returning to hell, and by the way, the evil spirits that were weakened into waste residue and survived by chance were pulled back to hell. In this regard, Li Feng said that you have cow hides, and you will leave after you leave, and you will bring all your belongings back to hell, let alone leave your roots in the world, even the land will be brought back to hell. How to drop it? You bought the land with money and you are going to bring the land back to hell. You are still a noble prince, I think you are a poor man. Cursing his lips, Li Feng raised a middle finger at Nabilis in his heart. In other words, it is a nest that has been in business for many years. There should be a lot of good things in it. Originally, I was thinking about picking up something cheaper in your nest. Woolen cloth. How stingy. Although Nabilis was sent back to hell, Li Feng looked at Leonor, who was still holy and with crystal clear skin. His eyes twitched. The war is over, can your father or grandfather take back the energy? I looked shivering. Leonor vaguely understood that because of the energy given by God, he had evolved. Leonor curiously touched his feathered wings, and looked at Li Feng who was backing away in the distance. When he was about to return Thea Solomon's key, in his hand to Li Feng, what suddenly he sensed. Li Feng saw Leonor flying towards him first, then instantly turned and flew towards the hole created by Nabilis when he returned to hell. He stubbornly opened the portal to the monastery, and muttered, this is to save. Come on Adam, if you say this is considered a beauty rescue hero, I just don't know if Adam, the stitching monster can resist Leonor's majestic energy. If it can't hold it, it will be fun. As soon as he walked to the monastery with his front feet, Li Feng saw Mordu spinning around a suspected female stone-wing beast. The stone-wing beast being looked at seemed unable to bear Mordu's affectionate gaze, and he backed away in terror. Scratching his head, Li Feng walked to Mordu's side, raised his right hand to pat Mordu's shoulder, after thinking about it, put down his right hand, swallowed saliva, and asked in a low voice, Mordu magician, don't tell me you were with the devil in the battle that stone-wing beast blocked for you or something. Your interpretation of the word partner appeared distorted, and you fell in love with that stone-wing beast. Maiden, if Mordu falls in love with a stone-wing beast, how can I explain to Ancient One when I go back? In case Mor'du stays in this world and does not return to the Marvel world, Ancient One hasn't peeled my skin yet. But cross-species love should be true love. As for reproductive isolation, this is a problem. If reproductive isolation is solved, what species are the children born to Stonewings and Mor'du? Stonewing beasts are stone in nature, is it a stone man? Mor'du rolled his eyes at Li Feng, pointed to the wound on the Stonewing beast and said, look. That's your wife, it's not so good for me to see it for free. Li Feng smirked while looking at the Stonewing beast in the direction that Mor'du pointed. There are some magic patterns on the Stonewing beast. Although Li Feng did not understand the effect of these magic patterns, he saw that the wounds on the Stonewing beast were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye, and he had probably had a few magic patterns in his heart. Staring, Li Feng found that he seemed to have underestimated the effect of Theosolomon's key. How long had this book been in the hands of Stonewing Beast? Stonewing Beast played the magic pattern on the book. If Stonewing Beast researched and cured thoroughly Magiweave, or all Stonewing Beasts becoming a beast version of Wolverine? This is just a healing magic pattern, if you engrave the destructive magic pattern all over your body. After Li Feng silently put wax on the devil in this world, he said, I will go back to the room to restore mana, and you can slowly study the magic lines by yourself. For a long time, Li Feng, who was sitting on the bedside to recover his mana, took out the hip flask with holy water and took a careful sip. I don't know if the holy water of this world will turn into poisonous water after passing through the gate. After all, the rules of different worlds are different. Shaking the flask, Li Feng estimated that the holy water in the flask was enough to drink for a few days. Calculated by the consumption of 1 sip per day, it would take about 10 days to drink it all, so I'd better stay in this world for 10 days. Back to the Marvel world. It's just that Li Feng thinks that he has no money or friends in this world. If he doesn't want to be on the streets like a tramp, he can only stay in the Stonewing Beast Monastery, and then face Leonore that exudes holy glory all day. Li Feng scratched his eyebrows, thinking, should I just wander on the street? Just as Li Feng was thinking about finding some gangsters to robbery, Ophir's voice came from outside the door. Austin, the Queen asked me to return Theosolomon's key to you, and thank you for her. Li Feng pushed open the door and took Theosolomon's key from Ophir. Ophir explained with a trace of apology on his face. Originally, the Queen wanted to thank you personally, but you also know that the Queen held Theosolomon's key. Key's inability to control his own skyrocketing energy after communicating with God resulted in amazing charm, and even us were somewhat affected, so now the Queen can only stay in the quiet room alone to get familiar with these energy as soon as possible. Li Feng nodded, thinking with joy in his heart, I wish Leonore would not come out. Li Feng glanced at Mor'du's room, saw the door open, and asked curiously, is Mor'du still studying the magic lines on your body? Ophir lowered his head and glanced at the magic pattern on his body, and said, Mor'du and Adam are only talking on the roof. After hesitation, Ophir asked curiously, do you really see that he should have a soul? Although Li Feng didn't see Adam after the war, he knew the plot, so he nodded for sure. Ophir shrugged, saying that he couldn't understand how the suture monster came out of its soul, so he could only make up his mind that this was God's reward for Adam. By the way, the Queen asked me to take you to our collection room before entering the quiet room. You can choose some props or materials as our thanks to you. After listening to Li Feng's eyes, he was about to run out of playing cards. It was just when there was a shortage of materials to reforge some. It was really time for Leonore's thank you to come. But Li Feng took out the hip flask from his pocket and said, can you give me some holy water? Compared to props, Li Feng believes in his own strength more, and Li Feng can feel that his magician aptitude is slowly improving after using the holy water, and maybe he will be able to create a good fireball after a while. Ophir knew how cumbersome the process of making the holy water drunk by Li Feng was, how precious the materials were, and there were not many stocks in the monastery, so he shook his head regretfully and said, I need to tell the Queen to get back to you. Pointing to Li Feng's flat flask, Ophir continued, if you want to continue using the holy water, I advise you to forget it. I don't know if you have heard of drug resistance. These special holy waters will also let you use it. You have resistance. When the Queen gave you holy water, she has already calculated the amount you can bear. Therefore, even more holy water can't help you purify your mind and improve your magician aptitude. If you want to use holy water to deal with evil creatures, when I did not say. Li Feng was stunned, and it was right to think about it. If the holy water can infinitely improve the magician aptitude, he still considers staying in this world and raises his aptitude to the point where the gods are drooling before leaving. Waved his hand, Li Feng signaled that he did not want holy water. After reporting some common magic materials to Ophir, he turned and went back to the room to study the spells on Thiki of Solomon. As for the devil sealed in the scroll, Li Feng didn't have his brain drawn. Talk to the devil in the monastery, and hide in the mirrored space. 10 days later, Li Feng sat cross-legged on the training ground where the stone wing beast was practicing martial arts, and drank his last sip of holy water. After a long time, Li Feng, who was perceiving the change in power, stood up suddenly, and while slowly raising his right hand, a football file-size fireball suddenly appeared in his palm. With a grin, Li Feng waved his right hand, allowing the fireball in his palm to rotate around him a few times and then shoot at an arrow target 50 meters away, but the fireball flew away from the edge of the target, and dissipated when it was about 100 meters away, in the air. Li Feng scratched his eyebrows and muttered to himself, "While the holy water purifies my mind, it also helps me strengthen my mental power. So now I can accurately control the fireball within 15 meters, so that it can automatically track the fireball at 15 meters, but over 15 meters, you can only aim in advance and let the fireball shoot at the enemy along a fixed trajectory, but the flight speed of the fireball is a bit slow, similar to a bow and arrow. In the Marvel world, there are too many people who can avoid the bow and arrow. Calculating the time, it's time to return to the Marvel world, but after I went back, I was a bit busy. First, I forged some mana-saving playing cards, and then practiced the accuracy of the fireball and the strength of the fireball's rate of fire. The speed of the bullet is even better, and finally some spells must be pried from the devil's mouth. Leaving the training ground, Li Feng found Mordu, who was chatting with Adam and Wade, and said, "It looks like you have made new friends in this world." After speaking, Li Feng cast his eyes ambiguously at Wade, and said to Adam, "I haven't congratulated you on your soul and love." "Thank you." Adam turned his head and glanced at Wade, who blushed slightly, and said, "It feels good to be a human, at least not alone." Mordu looked up and down at Li Feng, who had advanced in mana, and said, "Are you ready to go home?" Seeing Li Feng nodding, Mordu got up and hugged Adam, and said, "The flight to take me home is about to take off. Take care, my friend." Adam, who hugged Mordor, patted Mordor on the back and said, "I will, you also take care." When Li Feng and Mordu went back to their rooms to sort their luggage, Ophir hurriedly found Li Feng, handed Li Feng a scroll and a wooden box with weak energy fluctuations, and said, "The queen knows that you are going to leave. This is what she told me. Turn to you." The scroll records the queen's magic principle of analyzing Thea Solomon's key. As for the wooden box, it is a gift from her. After speaking, Ophir pointed to Mordor's room and said, "The queen also prepared a gift for Mordor. I will give him the gift now. Take care." Returning to the Marvel Universe, Li Feng looked at the electronic clock on the bedside for the first time, and quietly spit out the mobile U-disc wrapped in mana from his mouth, muttering to himself in confusion, "There is no reason we're slaughtering the devil. The world of warriors only stayed for half a month, and I was still descending into the garbage alleys of the world of Slayer warriors, opening the door with the same energy and returning. Why did the world of Marvel go through a month? Time has doubled. Mordu on the side rubbed his uncomfortable stomach from being squeezed through the door, and glanced at Li Feng in a daze at the clock. After thinking for a while, he understood what Li Feng was thinking, and said with a little envy in his tone, Isn't it normal that the world time is not equal? Did you forget the changes after drinking the holy water? Although your own total mana has not changed, your mana purity has changed, and you still can't control the mana perfectly. Output. The time equivalence of the two worlds is the weird thing. Forget about this." Li Feng took out the gift box from Ayano and looked down, and said awkwardly, "What gift is Ayano giving you? Show it to me." "Holy water." Mordubian took out a kettle from his pocket and said, "What do you want? My strength is much higher than yours, so this thing doesn't help me much. If it's dealing with the devil, I believe me more. The magic weapon in my hand, after all, no one knows that the holy water with super effective effects in Leonor's world can deal with the demons in our world. I don't want to use my life to test the effect of holy water in battle. Li Feng scratched his head, thinking that he might be able to use holy water to deal with the old devil who was sealed in the scroll in the future, took out the hip flask from his arms, and said, "Give me some, in case one day I encounter a powerful devil." Mordor took the flat hip flask, poured holy water from the kettle into the flask, looked at the wooden box in Li Feng's hand, and curiously said, "I just killed some demons with the stone wing beast and gave me precious holy water. Thea Solomon's key you contributed will be more helpful to Stonewing Beast. See what kind of precious thanks Leonor has prepared for you." At this time, the movement of Li Feng opening the door to go home was noticed by Ancient One. When Li Feng was about to open the wooden box to see what the gift was, Ancient One suddenly knocked on the door and said, "Li Feng, Mordu, welcome home." Mordu hurriedly opened the door, folded his hands and saluted, and said, "Master Ancient One." Ancient One glanced at Mordu, then at Li Feng, frowning and saying, "It looks like you have gained a lot in Otherworld, and the improvement in mana is beyond my imagination." Li Feng Shanshan scratched his head and said with a little embarrassment, "I rely on foreign objects to improve my strength. By the way, we are going to see a gift from a queen of Otherworld together. Although I don't know what foreign objects you use to improve your strength, I can see that you digest well, at least there are no side effects." Ancient One glanced at the wooden box in Li Feng's hand, waved under the mirror space and said, "Different worlds are different. The rule, to be safe, let's check your gift in the mirror space." In the mirrored space, Li Feng carefully opened the wooden box, frowned and looked at a white feather in the box. "What's the situation? Leonor knew that I was a Chinese, so he came here with a gentle courtesy, and gave me root hairs." When Li Feng was about to take out the feather to see what species it was, Ancient One quickly stopped and said, "I can feel the huge energy in the feather, and its energy is dissipating when you open the wooden box, close it." Wooden box. I think this wooden box can prevent the energy in the feathers from dissipating. While thinking about it, Ancient One asked, "Tell me what world you are in. The feathers of ordinary creatures don't have such a holy and huge energy." Mordu glanced at Li Feng and told Ancient One what he saw in the world of Demon Slayer, but Li Feng heard that there was some confusion between Mordu's words and thought for a while, and understood that Mordu wanted to ask some questions from Ancient One, such as what is justice, what is evil, and what behavior is disrupting the balance of nature. "It is probably in front of me." Mordu is embarrassed to speak out the question in his heart. Thinking of this, Li Feng interrupted Mordu's narration, folded his hands and said to Ancient One, "Master, I'm a little hungry, first go to the cafeteria to find something to eat." Mordu heard what Li Feng meant and said with a smile, "I prepared a gift for you before going to Otherworld. Don't leave Taj later. I will take you to see the gift." Li Feng subconsciously looked at Ancient One, but Ancient One helped Mordu paid for taking him through, and now Mordu opened his mouth to give gifts again, which made Li Feng a little embarrassed. "The gift has nothing to do with traversal," Mordu said with some embarrassment. "You agreed to let Master Ancient One try to teach me time spells, so this is a thank you gift for learning time spells." Li Feng shrugged, and said, "Wait for you to learn the time spell to thank me." After speaking, Li Feng crossed the portal to return to reality and walked out of the room. On the way to the restaurant, Li Feng looked at the wooden box repeatedly. Holy energy. It is estimated that this is Liam pulling the feathers from his wings, that counts. Pseudo-angel feathers. I originally planned to use holy water to question the old man's devil spells, but now I can use feathers directly. Early the next morning, Mordu walked to the door of Li Feng's room with a few books, and slapped the door hard. Li Feng was sleeping on the bed with a quilt wrapped in a quilt. He stood up to his side and shouted helplessly, "I'm here, you can't lighten it. Knock on the door. Who will be the one if you knock it badly? I can't afford it anyway." Opening the door of the room, Li Feng breathed and looked at Mordu. "Looking for me so early, what's the matter?" Mordu handed the book in his hand to Li Feng and said, "These are the notes I took when I practiced the spiritual spell. I hope it will be useful to you." After speaking, Mordu looked around and saw no one, took out a book from his pocket and handed it to Li Feng. He whispered, "This is the dark spell you asked Ancient One to modify for you." With a smirk, Li Feng quickly took the book and put it in his arms, turned back to the room to dress, and said, Thank you, yes, I will start my trip again when I finish breakfast. Mordu leaned on the door frame, watching Li Feng packing his luggage, and said, Is there a travel destination? Li Feng spread out his hands. You also know that I have no friends or family, or I have traveled to other worlds, so I'll count where I go. Maybe I will find a beautiful place to study. Speaking of this, Li Feng patted his chest, showing what he was going to do with it. Mordu understood that it was Li Feng preparing to find a hidden place to study dark spells. Although it is dangerous to study dark spells, it is more dangerous to study dark spells in Kamatage. After all, there are magicians who are sensitive to energy. Mordor nodded to express understanding, and said, I'm sending you to New York, just to give you a gift. Don't be too busy to refuse. Trust me, you will like my gift. Li Feng turned his head to look at Mordu, pointed to books about spirits, and said, What gift is so mysterious? More precious than these books. It's not precious, Mordu said, you'll know then. Okay, then I'll know. Li Feng shrugged and said, I'm looking forward to it. After eating breakfast, Mordor brought Li Feng to New York through the Holy Place portal. As soon as the two walked out of the portal, Daniel, who guarded the Holy Place, walked in front of them and said, Mordor, long time no see, and you, Feng Li, is otherworld fun. Li Feng was stunned. How do I feel that Kamatage's magician knows that I will cross? Li Feng didn't say anything. Mordu rubbed his eyebrows and explained to Li Feng, Don't worry, the only thing you can go through is Ancient One, and I and Daniel know. Then, Mordo smiled bitterly at Daniel again, You'll know if you try it. I throw all my 3 views on the ground, and I can't fight back. I don't have much interest in traveling through anything. I have seen quite a few magical creatures in outer space during the period when I was guarding the Holy Place. Daniel didn't know what Mordor had gone through. He wanted to be curious to ask what happened that led to the change in the 3 views. He just watched Li Feng carrying his bulging luggage and guessed, Are you leaving Kamatage? Before Li Feng could explain, Mordu said, There is a saying in the heavens that it is better to travel thousands of miles to read thousands of books. Li Feng is going to practice magic while traveling. Daniel turned sideways to clear the road, and smiled thoughtfully, I understand now why you bought a RV, is it for Li Feng? RV. Li Feng turned his head to look at Mordu. The gift you said was RV. Mordor rolled his eyes at Daniel and said, I originally wanted to give Li Feng a surprise, but now it's fine. You said it in advance, and there are no surprises. Daniel spread his hands and said, Well, my fault, blinked at Li Feng again, and said, I hope you will like that caravan. After speaking, Daniel left after saluting. Leaving the Holy Place, Mordo took Li Feng to a parking lot not far from the Holy Place, took out the car key from his pocket, pointed to a new small luxury car, and said, I heard you before. I want to have my own RV. Although the surprise was destroyed by Daniel, I still hope you like this gift. Li Feng smiled and took the key, walked around the RV, opened the door and walked into the car. The space of a small RV is not good, but it is enough for the single Li Feng, and Li Feng believes that sooner or later he will find the space spell. After changing the RV magic, don't look at my RV. The exterior is small and can't fit a few people, but the interior can raise whales. Seeing that the kitchen, bedroom, and bathroom in the RV should be complete, Li Feng sat in the driver's seat after checking one by one, and said to Mordu outside the window, I like the present very much, thank you buddy. Seeing that Li Feng had started the RV, Mordo waved goodbye and cleared the road, and said, Kamatage welcomes you back at any time. In the driving position, Li Feng stretched out the window with his left hand and waved to Mordu, indicating that he heard it, stepped on the accelerator, and drove the RV towards the city. Before leaving New York, Li Feng has one important thing to do. New York, Chinatown. It was almost noon after Li Feng bought a large amount of dry food and mineral water from the supermarket. He parked the RV in the parking lot, carrying all the belongings for less than $10,000, carrying a shoulder bag with spell books and scrolls, and choosing one at random. A Chinese restaurant that seemed to taste good came in. I want to ask Li Feng how he can see that this Chinese restaurant tastes good. I definitely guessed it by looking at the customer flow. After all, the restaurant tastes bad and can't attract business. Pushing open the door of the restaurant, Li Feng looked at the clean, tidy, and retro-decorated environment with satisfaction. Just as Li Feng was looking at the restaurant environment and looking for vacancies, a Chinese woman wearing a black leather jacket walked up to Li Feng and said in Chinese, "Sir, alone." Hearing familiar Chinese makes Li Feng feel more cordial, and he has the urge to spend all his money in the restaurant. Li Feng wondered what it would be like for the waiter in the restaurant not to wear work clothes and black leather jackets, and nodded and said, "Definitely." The leather waiter glanced at the full hall and said with a smile, "The first floor is full, please go to the second floor for dinner." Where to sit and eat, Li Feng said that it doesn't matter. During this period of time, he and Mordu escorted the devil in the plague-ridden world. We must know that the stone wing beast is essentially a stone. What does the stone eat? Therefore, stone-wing beasts can't cook at all. During the period when he lived in the monastery, Li Feng drank clean water every day and ate cheap bread bought in the supermarket. Now, he just wants to have a good lunch to comfort his injured stomach. Led by the leather waiter, Li Feng walked to the second floor of the restaurant. When passing by the kitchen door, a Chinese chef who was in charge turned his eyes to the waiter and exclaimed in surprise, "May. Why are you here?" May looked at the chef with a little helpless tone, and said, "Mom is going to live in New York for a few days, but you know how bad my craftsmanship is, so I'm going to ask you to buy some semi-finished dishes and take them home to warm them up with my mom. Enjoy Chinese food together." The chef shook his head and smiled. You really should put aside your work and practice your cooking skills, girl's family." May looked helpless and said at the same time as the chef, "As long as you have a good cooking skill, you can hold a man's heart." After speaking, May drooped her head and said, "You have said this hundreds of times, and I can hear the cocoon in my ears. I won't tell you, I will take the diners to the second floor to order." Li Feng glanced at the counterfeit waiter a little speechlessly, and he heard that this lady named May is not a waiter at all, but a diners like him. The difference is that Li Feng eats in the restaurant, while May is about to take home to eat. "Sister, you are not a waiter, how can you help me order?" "Later, I will order Peking duck. If you say yes, wait a moment," and then ran to the kitchen and asked, "There is no Peking duck. Didn't you delay my meal?" The chef also heard something wrong, frowned and said, "Where is that girl, Xiaohui? How can you let the guests be waiters? It's too shameful." May gestured for Li Feng to go upstairs, and said to the chef, "Xiaohui has a stomachache. She goes to the bathroom and asks me to help her with work." While the chef whispered that, "Lazy people have more poop and pee," Li Feng followed May and walked to the second floor of the restaurant, picked a window along the street and sat down, and said, "Broiled pork, mushrooms and vegetables, another egg soup, and another big bowl of rice." After thinking about it, Li Feng felt that he could have a little wine in the RV at night, and said, "Are there fried peanuts, sweet and sour pork ribs, and white-cut chicken?" "These 3 dishes are packaged." Seeing May nodded cleanly, Li Feng said inwardly, "Yes, without asking, does the restaurant buy from your farm?" Before May went downstairs, there was a female scream in the direction of the bathroom, and May rushed to the bathroom without thinking about it. She heard Xiaohui's voice. Li Feng looked at the bathroom with a curious probe. Vaguely, Li Feng smelled a bloody smell, scratched his head, and Li Feng got up and walked towards the bathroom. When he walked to the bathroom, Li Feng raised his head and glanced at the bathroom with the word, "male," written on it, and then at the female bathroom next to him. Feng Li can be sure that the smell of blood and the screams of the women before came from the men's bathroom, so this waiter named Xiaohui ran into the men's bathroom, or Xiaohui is actually a man, just the voice and name make me misunderstood. Ma Dan, the man is Xiaohui. What do his parents think? Want your daughter to be crazy? Li Feng pushed open the men's bathroom and saw Xiaohui sitting paralyzed on the ground, while May was holding a pistol in both hands, aiming at a metallic bone on his back and beating a man in a black suit. The burly strange man shouted, "Don't move." Li Feng looked at Xiaohui in a skirt with suspicion, and asked curiously, "Big brother? Big sister, are you a man or a woman?" Xiaohui. May rolled his eyes at Li Feng with a look of caring for the mentally retarded, and said, "Call an ambulance." After speaking, May put the pistol back into the gun bag, rubbed his fists, and gritted his teeth as he walked to the strange man and said, "I want you to stop and hear." The strange man didn't seem to hear what May was yelling at all. He still had his eyes red, and concentrated on beating the man in the suit who had been motionless on the ground. "This weird man is chewing Xuanmai, can't stop it." Li Feng originally thought he could see a fight scene between a beauty and beast, and then his handsome hero saved the beauty. As a result, what did he see? I saw Mei squatted up and hit the strange man's cheek with a fierce punch, and then Li Feng looked at the strange man in a coma with contempt, and couldn't help but spit out in his heart. Seeing you ignoring the plum holding the gun, and the bones on your back, I thought you had the blood and blood of the bones and the boundaries, and the art was high and bold. It's big. As a result, you are a weak scum, so easily knocked out by a woman. It's not right. I don't think that the burly man looks like a weak chicken, so it should be said that Mei's fists are hard enough. By the way, Sister Mei, what kind of boxing do you practice? I want to learn. Li Feng quietly cast a spell to look at the spirit body of the strange man while slandering. He blamed such obvious features on the man. If Li Feng could not recognize this as a stranger, would it be true that all these years of Marvel movies were for nothing? After the meeting, Li Feng whispered and whispered, "It is said that the alien's genes are defective. According to the principle that the body and the soul are closely related, so once the alien is activated, the soul will also be affected." Scratching his head, Li Feng curled his mouth and thought, so I saw that this strange person's spirit body was as colorful as a rainbow, but the color was a little dim, just like a color-weakened patient watching a rainbow. Mei took out the handcuffs from her back and cuffed the hands of the foreigner. While checking whether the man in the suit was dead, she shouted to Li Feng with bad words, "I asked you to call an ambulance, didn't you hear it?" Li Feng glanced at the man in the suit. He had already seen that this guy's spiritual body was beginning to dissipate. This was the imagination of Deadman. He slandered in his heart, "What kind of ambulance? Just hit the morgue." Spreading his hands, Li Feng said innocently with his eyes, "I don't have a phone, you can search me if you don't believe me." Mei had found that the man in the suit was out of help, gritted her teeth and cast Li Feng in her eyes, and said, "Please leave the bathroom." Li Feng curled his lips and said disdainfully, "Leave as soon as you leave, but can you help me prepare the food first? Otherwise, there will be a corpse in the restaurant, or starve to death." A dinner starved to death in the restaurant. How do you explain that the Daily News will report? Mei feels like she is going crazy. Who is this? Can she eat in a restaurant with peace of mind after seeing the dead body? Let's not talk about food or not, it's only strange that the restaurant can be open normally. Mei was too lazy to talk to Li Feng. After holding his gun to let Li Feng leave the bathroom, he took out his mobile phone to make a call and said, "Sir, you'd better come to Chinatown. I will send you the address." The man opens your eyes. Mei put down the phone, helped Xiaohui and said, "You go out for a glass of water first, but don't leave the restaurant. My colleague will be there soon." Mei helped Xiaohui walk out of the restaurant, subconsciously trying to find Li Feng, but there was still Li Feng in the restaurant. Oops, Mei's eyes almost ignited in anger, and he muttered fiercely and silently, "This guy said in front of me that he was hungry and waiting to eat. It was all a lie to me. He just wanted me to subconsciously think he would stay in the restaurant. It turned out to be buggy long ago." Li Feng is not stupid. He is foolishly waiting in the restaurant knowing that there is a murder case of another person in the restaurant, but he knows that it is not the police who will be waiting, but S.H.I.E.L.D. Sure enough, when Li Feng drove an RV from the parking lot to pass by the restaurant was sealed off. There were several black SUVs parked at the door, and several soldiers in helmets and heavily armed, and several in biochemical suits got out of the car. Scientific research personnel holding instruments to scan everywhere. The sharp-eyed Li Feng also saw Fury with hair, but compared to the last time we met, Fury now wears a blindfold and becomes a one-eyed man. Li Feng sprinted towards the suburbs with a kick of the accelerator, while slandering, "Well, let's get your hair straightened. You are the non-chief in my mind." Fury felt that someone was looking at him when Li Feng passed by, and looked around subconsciously. After a while, Fury frowned and walked into the second floor of the restaurant without notice. Seeing Mei was comforting the waiter, Fury patted her palms and instructed Yi Mei to come over and report the specific situation. As for Xiaohui, there is definitely a professional psychological staff to guide her, at least to ensure that Xiaohui will not talk about what she saw today. In the corner of the dining room, after Mei told Fury in detail what happened in the bathroom, she didn't know whether to tell Fury about Li Feng. From a certain point of view, Li Feng is really suspicious. First of all, he was calm when he saw the corpse. In the short conversation between the two of them, Mei also found that Li Feng did not seem to be curious about the weird man, but gave her a kind of strangeness. No strange feeling. This is very abnormal. When ordinary people see such a weird human being, not to mention yelling like Xiaohui, but at least giving a scared expression is normal operation. Fury saw Mei hesitation, and asked, anything else? After thinking about it, Mei told Fury about Li Feng's performance. When Mei finished describing Li Feng's dress and appearance, Fury squinted and said, you said he is of Chinese origin and has a small belly. Seeing Mei nodded and admitted, Fury took out a sticky note from his pocket, quickly drew a sketch of Li Feng, and asked, is this person? He wears slippers, the most impressive thing. By the way, he wears slippers today. Mei nodded and said, it's this person. She was a little curious. Listening to Fury's tone, the two not only knew each other, but were also very familiar with each other, but what impressed me the most was what it meant to wear slippers. Is it a personal quirk? Mei said with some doubts. He doesn't wear slippers, but a pair of boots. The corners of Fury's mouth curled up slightly. When we returned to the Kree cruise ship and didn't find your body, I knew you were still alive, but replaced your slippers with boots. Does this mean that your taste is evolving? Still know that I called you Roar in the file as a man in slippers, so I wear boots now, so that I can take time to change the name in the file to man in boots. Mei hesitation, and asked, sir, do you need to call up his monitor to check his whereabouts? Definitely, Fury whispered, but only you and I know this. Mei thought for a while, nodded and said, I use the excuse of investigating how the man with crooked bones entered the restaurant, and see if I can find it from the surveillance, small belly. A good excuse, Fury smiled. But how did Austin say you are Chinese like you? I don't know if you call Roar that way, he will be mad. You are really familiar with it, otherwise, how do you know that he hates how people call Roar him? Mei squinted, pointed at the unconscious supernatural person, and whispered, this Austin is just like him. A capable person. I want to find him as soon as possible before he loses control, so as not to injure innocent people. Fury raised his brows, thought for a while, shook his head and said, maybe, it's complicated to talk about. To be honest, I hope he is a stranger. In fact, Fury is not sure if Li Feng is a supernatural person, but more guesses that Li Feng is an alien with human skin. There are many reasons for this speculation. First, when Fury returned to the Kree cruise ship, he found that the elite Kree troops slaughtered by Carol had a lot less equipment. Scientists in the Bureau are still deciphering the Kree's technology and inspecting these weapons when they carry germs. And the scientists in the Bureau have proved that some weapons are not usable by humans at all, and Li Feng actually stole the alien equipment with the courage. Does this mean that Li Feng knows how to use these alien weapons? Also, although the green-skinned Taros said that there were no spaceships on the cruise ship, Fury felt that because he could not find Li Feng, he had reason to guess that Li Feng was driving the spacecraft back to the Earth or leaving the Earth. According to the data, people on Earth who can't even fly a plane will suddenly pilot an alien spacecraft. Doesn't this also mean that Li Feng is an alien? Finally, there is another reason why Li Feng is an alien. When it was placed on his desk and showed that Li Feng was just an ordinary human data, Fury suddenly thought about it. His Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Security Bureau claimed to be able to check it with only a mouse. An organization where the 18 generations of mouse ancestors have made holes. Now what? Is the ordinary Li Feng in the information really the Austin he met? This is completely two people. I am afraid that the Austin I saw was an alien pretending to be. Fury recalled that he spent a lot of energy mobilizing resources in the Bureau to find Li Feng's figure, but he couldn't even find the other person's shadow, which made him feel that Li Feng was actually flying in space when he was on the Kree cruise ship. The ship left the Earth. As a result, when he was about to give up searching for Li Feng suddenly appeared in New York. Fury felt that the opportunity was rare. Because whether it is Li Feng himself using alien weapons or bringing these alien weapons into the black market, Fury needs to know the whereabouts of these alien weapons, and ask which planet Li Feng belongs to and where he came to the Earth. This is he can't escape the duties. However, considering the kindness of Li Feng and the force of single-handedly rescued Talos, Fury felt that he could bring the same powerful Mei to meet the suspected alien, but wearing the Li Feng skin of Austin. After a while, Mei was holding a bunch of materials in her hand, and hurried to Fury, who was sitting at the table drinking a drink, and said, "Sir, a good news and a bad news, which one do you want to hear first?" Fury held his forehead with one hand, curled the corner of his mouth and said, "First come the bad news, at least there will be good news to treat my little heart later." May shrugged and said, "Although the profile of the guy with the long skeleton back was found, it disappeared strangely during the escort." "Weird." Fury rubbed his eyebrows and asked, "Weirder than his sudden exoskeleton?" May handed the information in her hand to Fury, and said, "There are 3 vehicles in the convoy escorting the supernatural person. Among them, the sealed car holding the supernatural person is in the middle of the team. 4 soldiers who were in the carriage disappeared together. The people at the base found no signs of fighting after inspecting the sealed car, and during the escort, the monitoring of the rear car of the sealed car showed that the vehicle holding the supernatural person was silent, and even a bit of turbulence did not occur. The saddest thing is that we haven't even collected the DNA of the supernatural beings." Fury flipped over the data in front of him and said, "That is to say, we only collect data when the supernatural person is still in the normal range." "Yes, sir. This news is really bad enough." Fury took a deep breath, closed the information and threw it on the desktop. What he wants to know is when and where the other party became a supernatural person. Obviously, the pile of information in front of him can't give him an answer. In addition, he can check the information at any time, so there is no need to waste it here. Time is up. After taking a sip of the drink, Fury said, "Now tell me the good news, so that I can have a good mood to take home before work." May looked around and whispered, "I'm afraid you are still a long time away from work. I have tracked Austin's whereabouts. He is now driving a motorhome on the highway and looks like he is about to leave New York." Fury stood up and motioned for May to leave the restaurant with herself, and said, "This is good news. It's good news that I'm going to work overtime. By the way, you said that my belly ordered fried peanuts for takeaway." Seeing May Tan nodded, Fury, who had not walked out of the restaurant, suddenly said to Phil Coulson, who was standing at the door as a doorman, "Help me buy some fried peanuts, sweet and sour pork ribs and white-cut chicken." "May, I know the turkey black-bone chicken. But what kind of chicken is the white-cut chicken?" On the side, May, who had amazing cooking skills, said in a slightly uncertain tone, "Sir, white-cut chicken is chicken cooked in boiled water." After thinking about it, May added, "And these dishes are all Chinese dishes. Wine and food." Fury nodded, expressing that he couldn't understand the taste of chicken cooked in plain water, and turned to ask Phil Coulson, "Understood?" Phil Coulson smiled and nodded and said, "Buying some beer?" "Yes," Fury said to Phil Coulson as he opened the door to signal May to get into the car and checked the pistol in the holster. "I want to talk to my old friend about his future life plans." May was a little puzzled. From Fury's words, she knew that she was going to intercept Austin, but Fury even said that she needed to keep the other party's whereabouts secret. What was the matter if she brought herself? Does Fury want to be a waiter, or will the ears stay at home and can only watch the poor who Fury and Austin are drinking and chatting with beer bottles? May sat in the driver's seat to start the car, and smiled faintly, "Sir, I'm not a traitor." Fury, who was sitting in the passenger seat, rolled his eyes at May. He definitely knew that May was joking. May was not a powerful but simple agent. He was a well-known player in the game, but for the sake of safety, Fury still reminded, "The bullet is best loaded, I don't want to receive any bad news." "Bad news? Does it mean that I will sacrifice?" May glanced at Fury and said solemnly, "Sir, are you sure it is necessary? The surveillance screen shows that there is only one person in Austin, or a man who is not strong and has a small belly. If I can, I would like to call an army to support." Fury pointed to his blindfold and sneered, "Although there are some things I can't tell you, but I remind you, you are a man with a small belly in your mouth. Well informed, it hasn't seen it with his own eyes before." May, who stepped on the gas pedal, tilted her head and muttered, "I thought he blinded your eyes. You want him to avenge me and ask me to do military support. I'm thinking about how much I will be paid." Fury took out a folded paper from his pocket and spread it out in his hand, and said casually, "Tell me how much you want to pay. This task is a semi-public and semi-private thing. Maybe I can pay you." Although May held the steering wheel in both hands and almost stepped on the accelerator under her feet, her excellent driving skills allowed her to glance at the paper in Fury's hand. When she saw the picture of Austin on the paper, as well as Austin's Chinese name and some basic information, May was a little surprised and joked, "Sir, is this guy worthy of your information with you? Couldn't it be Austin who robbed your girlfriend?" "It would be easy if I grabbed my girlfriend." Fury finished reading the information, put the paper back in his jacket pocket, raised his right hand to simulate the shooting action, and said, "I paid for the bullets out of my pocket and gave Austin a free shot." May raised her brows. "I'm wondering whether to get out of the car. It's probably not easy." Fury changed to a comfortable sitting position and said, "Look at Luck. When we worked with Austin before, we got along pretty well." May squinted her eyes. Although Fury didn't say much, she still heard some basic information, such as Austin is a dangerous man. Fury carried Austin's information with him because Fury couldn't find the matching suspicious points in the information. This is very telling. Is the person who can deal with Fury and let Fury be deflated as the average person shown in the information? Who believes in who is a fool? On a highway in New York. Don't ask where it is or what kind of highway it is. Li Feng said he didn't know. He just drove along the road with the least traffic to the suburbs. As for where he was going, he hadn't decided yet. Perhaps it is to find a beautiful place to digest the gains of these several journeys, such as practicing the spells on Thiki of Solomon, or practicing the dark spells modified by Ancient One, or finding a place where no one is inhabited by birds. Interrogate the devil in the lower scroll to see if you can blackmail the devil's spell. Li Feng hummed a song without a note in the tune, parked the RV in the gas station on the side of the road, picked up the shoulder bag in the passenger seat and walked into the convenience store of the gas station. No way, Li Feng left the restaurant in Chinatown without having lunch, and now he feels panicked with hunger after running out of New York City. If there is no food in the convenience store here, he opens the portal to a place Kaldibeiming, where there is a creature called Kun, and Li Feng feels that he can eat one at a time without any seasoning. The raw swallow. Just when Li Feng entered the convenience store and ate like a hungry ghost, he drove the car out of the plane and looked like May, and finally saw the RV stopped at the gas station. May pointed to the RV and asked, "Sir, what do you do now?" Fury pushed the car door, pointed at the communicator in the cochlea while adjusting his collar, and said, "You are ready to respond in the car, and if something is wrong, you will immediately contact the Bureau and ask them to send fighter jets to support, and if necessary, from the air. Hit Austin." May was stunned, and when he pulled out the pistol, the corners of his mouth twitched and said, "Sir, what you said is a bit exaggerated, but also fighters. Why don't you say that you send tank troops to support?" Fury turned his head to look at May, curled his mouth, and said, "If necessary, you can contact the tank unit." May, I didn't do it like that. It makes me feel like a world war is about to break out. Fury, no matter what May thinks, he only knows that if Austin is really an alien, or an alien with an intrusive mind, then there is a real possibility of a war, or a star-level war. Don't talk about tanks then. Nuclear weapons are thrown as hard as dumplings. Walking straight to the front of the RV, Fury skillfully opened the door with a pin, got into the car on his own, and quietly waited for Li Feng to return. At the moment, the dining table in front of Li Feng was in a mess. Before he left, Li Feng was still burping, carrying a box of canned beer and returning to the car, preparing to get a chicken or rabbit at night for a barbecue. Opening the car door, Li Feng dropped the beer and shoulder bag in the passenger seat. Before starting the car, Li Feng felt a pistol on the back of his head. Li Feng quietly mobilized his mana to do a good job of protection, and looked through the rearview mirror to see which one did not have eyes that dared to rob a magician. In the rearview mirror, Fury raised his pistol and said with a faint smile, "It's been a long time since I saw Austin. Mr. Greenskin asked me to greet you for him." When Li Feng knew that Fury was pointing the gun at him, he heaved a sigh of relief. He stretched out his right hand and raised his middle finger to Fury. He said, "You can keep your hand steady. Wouldn't I be wronged if I wipe the gun and misfire?" Li Feng understood that Fury was talking about greenskins to himself, but he was afraid that he was not the Austin he saw at the first time. He also said with a faint smile, "Which greenskin is in your mouth?" "I know a lot of greenskins. Speaking of the green skin that impressed me the most was the one that used a hammer screwdriver to modify an airplane. I remember you said that he deserves to be engaged in scientific research." Hearing this, Fury knew that he had not found the wrong person, but he didn't want to put down the pistol easily. He took out the handcuffs from his back and motioned to Li Feng to put it on himself, and said, "When I asked about your identity, I said it's not the time. Now it should be. It's time to tell me who you are." Li Feng took the handcuffs, hung the handcuffs on the rearview mirror, and said, "You are so kind. Come on." He also gave the pair of silver bracelets. "I will accept them without any kind of courtesy." Seeing that Li Feng used the excuse that he was too lazy to complain, Fury pushed Li Feng's head with a pistol and said, "Please answer my question. As for the gift, I really prepared it for you, but he is still on the way." Li Feng turned his head to look at Fury in surprise. Just now, what he heard, Li Feng, who suspected his auditory hallucinations, raised his ears and said in an uncertain tone, "You said you prepared a gift for me." Seeing Fury nodded, Li Feng shook his head subconsciously and said, "I remember Fury was a guy who opened his mouth when he saw a good thing, so he couldn't give me a gift." "Who are you? Why do you pretend to be a non-chief?" Fury's eyes twitched. Although he knew that Li Feng was joking, he didn't know why. He felt that his right hand holding the gun was not under his control, and his right hand seemed to have his own thoughts. It wanted to pull the trigger. Fury gritted his teeth and said, "I am Fury, and Talos asked me to greet him. I still can't believe it." While speaking, Li Feng looked up at the sun in the sky through the windshield, determined that the sun in the sky was hanging to the west in the afternoon, rubbed his eyes and said, "Or am I dreaming? Is it morning? Has the sun risen from the west?" Through Fury's communicator, May also heard what Li Feng said. She can now be sure that Fury and Austin are very familiar. After all, people who are unfamiliar really don't know the character of her Chief Stingy, but at the same time she is also very confused because he knows. "I heard Fury asking what was Austin's identity when he arrived. What's happening here? Is Austin serving a secret force, and Fury wants to figure out Austin's identity?" But Fury said that the expression when sending the fighter plane was not like a joke. May feels a bit headache. Although analyzing useful information from a few words is a basic operation of an agent, she said that she has a headache and can't analyze any information. Speaking of gifts, Li Feng ignored the pistol in the back of his head, and pulled out a mobile USB flash drive that was suspected of being soaked in strong acid from his shoulder bag, and said, "I have a gift for you, too." Fury looked at the mobile USB flash drive with file size in Li Feng's hand, squinted his eyes and asked, "I don't see that your sloppy ghost also has high-tech gadgets." "It won't be." Fury pointed to the sky and said, "Bring the stuff outside." Fury knows that mobile USB flash drives have not been popular in the market for long. Anyway, he would not believe what high-tech Lee Summit, who belongs to the Earthlings, is playing, so 80% of them were brought by the alien Austin from the aliens. Of private goods. Li Feng blinked inexplicably, then realized that, outside, refers to space, and said silently, "You don't think I'm an alien, do you?" Rolling his eyes at Fury, Li Feng pinched his cheek and said, "This is the original skin of the Earth. It is 100% pure and natural, with no additives and no modification." Fury was worried that Li Feng would say anything like the Kree, and quickly turned off the communicator in the cochlea, and said, "Since you are a natural human being on Earth, please tell me how you returned to the ground from the orbit of the Earth. Don't tell me you jumped straight down." Li Feng shrugged, and threw the mobile USB flash drive in his hand to Fury, and said, "Then I will fall into a meatloaf, the one that is steamed directly on the pot." Turning his eyes to the communicator crushed by Fury, Li Feng looked at May sitting in the car and said, "You are bold enough, as the director, you don't let the agent come, but come to see me in person. I should feeling fortunate for Sansheng, or worried that a sniper is aiming at my forehead somewhere I can't see. Director, although I want to take the seat of director, I am not yet." Fury took the USB flash drive and looked at it and asked, "Is it soaked in sulfuric acid, or is it corroded by your bad breath in your mouth?" Li Feng scratched his head. "This thing has really stayed in my mouth. In order to test whether the ordinary wrapped in mana can be carried through, am I easy? This is the experimental data of a certain scientific madman resurrecting a corpse. There are instructions for foolish operations. As long as you can repair the USB flash drive, you can resurrect anyone's corpse, but he has some minor side effects. The resurrected corpse is similar. A patient with amnesia, the kind who forgets whether he is a man or a woman." Fury stared at Li Feng with a single eye, shook the USB flash drive in his hand, and sneered, if the data in it is as you said, I'm sure you are an alien, resurrecting the corpse. You might as well say the tattered inside. Data is the secret of becoming a god. It can't be repaired anyway if it is corroded like this. It's not as you say it. Don't believe it. Li Feng ignored the pistol in Fury's hand, got up and walked straight to the locker of the RV, blocking Fury's sight with his body, took out the Matchbox file-size magic book from his pocket, and placed it in the locker after zooming in, out. Turning and walking in front of Fury, Li Feng turned the magic book to a page that recorded Frankenstein's experiment notes, pointed to the text and said, "This is a written record. It depends on whether you can understand it." Also, Li Feng pointed to the pistol helplessly, and said, "Can you stop pointing your gun at me all day? You don't know if you look upset." Fury glanced at Li Feng. He was also a senior agent at any rate. He thought he could tell that Li Feng was not afraid of pistols. After thinking about it, he looked at the magic book when he put the pistol away. Fury can still tell whether the experimental notes are nonsense or reliable. Just a quick glance, the caravan door was suddenly opened. May raised his pistol and aimed at Li Feng, cast his eyes to Fury, and asked after making sure that Fury had no appearance and was not injured. Said, "Sir, are you all right? After all, the non-chief here just put the gun away, and another person who aimed at me with a gun appeared on the other side. I was so bullied." Before Li Feng spoke, Fury looked down at the magic book, stretched out his hand to signal May to put away the pistol, and said in a serious tone, "Melinda, let Phil Coulson bring some medical experts, the sooner the better." May glanced suspiciously at Fury. Fury usually calls Roar himself May, and only calls himself Melinda during urgent or important tasks. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, May put away her pistol, took out her cell phone to make a call, and said, "Yes, sir." Outside the RV, after May hung up the phone, Fury ordered no one to approach the RV without his permission. May is very curious about the relationship between Fury and Li Feng, saying that they are friends. Then Fury reminded that if something is wrong, it is called support. It is unreasonable to say that it is an enemy. Didn't you see Fury come to see Li Feng alone, or no Li Feng? In the case of a dangerous person, only bring a small pistol to meet. But curiosity belongs to curiosity. As an agent, May still has the basic qualities, standing firmly in her position, holding guns in both hands, her eyes scan the surrounding environment like a lioness hunting. Definitely, if that is erected, the ears that are always ready to eavesdrop are not so obvious, even better. Li Feng took a sip from time to time with a bottle of beer. After reading the notes of the resurrected corpse boredly, Fury, who was still competing with the magic book, said in his heart, "It's my magic book anyway. You can see it without my permission. Content that has nothing to do with the resurrected corpse is strange." Fury is also ranting in his heart now. "A book 10 centimeters thick, apart from the content you opened, I can't even turn the pages of the book. I dare to say you are with this unknown technology. Produced by the original ecology of the Earth. You can simply say that the name of your home planet is the same as the name of the Earth." For a long time, I couldn't figure out that Fury, who opened the next page like this, closed the magic book and handed it to Li Feng, picked up a bottle of beer and said, "I'm very curious, how did you find this content, or is it from you?" Fury glanced at May outside the car. He didn't want to say that May knew that there were aliens on the Earth. He lowered his voice and continued, "The souvenirs brought from your hometown." Li Feng was a little speechless. He felt that Fury's brain had a pitfall or something. For what reason he was considered an alien? He didn't believe that Fury hadn't looked for his information since he separated from Fury last time. His information clearly told him. "Everyone, he is a native of the Earth. You are a blue-skinned and green-skinned alien. No, you are a black-skinned alien, right?" When I was wondering whether to tell Fury that he was actually a magician, Li Feng suddenly realized that Fury has repeatedly emphasized that he is an alien, and seems to be trying to conceal his identity. As long as he feels bored, just say something, Fury can judge what. If he admits to be an alien, there is nothing to say, Fury has to consider nothing more than imprisonment or dissolution. If you don't admit it, then as Fury asked, where did these techniques for resurrecting corpses come from? After all, in the information Fury investigated, there was no information on Li Feng's exposure to this type of technology. If Li Feng wants to explain clearly, either truthfully tell the secret that he can go through, or make up an excuse to convince Fury. It is not so easy to make up a lie that can fool an agent leader. Thinking of this, Li Feng put down the beer in his hand and sneered, "How do I feel that there is something in your words, so many questions or ambushes every time you ask?" Fury knew that Li Feng had vigilance in his heart, and he was unlikely to ask any useful information. However, the resurrection technique that Li Feng has given him is enough for him to digest for a while, and it also proves that Li Feng is indeed not malicious. Thinking of this, Fury got up and got himself a bottle of beer. After sitting back opposite Li Feng, while looking at the scenery outside the car window, he asked in a low voice, "Tell me about the equipment of those Kree people. What have you researched?" Li Feng smiled and said, "Do you have an occupational disease? No matter if I answer yes or I haven't researched anything, you can be sure that I have Kree equipment in my hand." "That is to say, you admitted that you took the Kree's equipment on the cruise ship before." Fury changed a comfortable position, cocked Erlang's legs, took a sip of beer, and asked curiously, "I was curious about how you would. We will not sell alien weapons on the black market, but after my investigation, I found that there are no suspected alien weapons on the black market." Fury pointed to the magic book that could not be opened, and said quietly, "I think you need to rely on fingerprints and passwords to open this book. I don't believe that you have this kind of technology in the ordinary information, so I was thinking, do you have a scientific research institution behind you, and you are a scientific researcher?" Li Feng shook his head and smiled. "Do you think I am like a scientific researcher?" Fury spread his hands. "Then how do you explain that non-scientists can wander around with these materials? If you are combatants, you should be armed with weapons. Only scientific researchers will take the materials and prepare to go home to continue research." Fury leaned in front of Li Feng, and Li Feng subconsciously leaned back, trying to stay away from the black face who was less than 20 centimeters away from him. Fury grinned and said, "Or do you have the identity of a commercial spy? You stole this book from a certain laboratory, and you only unlocked the page about the resurrected corpse. Maybe we can cooperate. You can talk about this book. The source of the book. I sent my elite troops to get the password to open other book pages." Li Feng scratched his eyebrows. He felt tired. Fury hid mystery every time he asked questions. No matter what he answered, he could find some clues. Just like now, Li Feng said that the magic book is his own. No fingerprints or passwords are needed to turn the book. Fury will definitely not believe it unless he asks Li Feng to explain how to open the magic book and let him see the contents. If the magic book is not his own, how should Li Feng explain it? Are you really making yourself a commercial espionage? If you want to deceive someone, you must first deceive yourself, especially the agent leader. Li Feng doesn't think he has such an ability, so don't say that Fury will not believe it. Even Li Feng himself does not believe it. Simply, Li Feng ignored Fury's question, drank beer on his own, looked at the distant scenery, and used practical actions to show his attitude. Fury saw Li Feng's plan, but he was not in a hurry. After all, Li Feng was in front of him, and he believed that Li Feng could not escape. It's just that Li Feng's attitude made him a little uncomfortable. If it weren't for the kindness shown before Li Feng, he would be ready to subdue Li Feng now and return to the game to slowly unlock the secrets of the magic book. It doesn't matter if you can't subdue Li Feng, how much you can take out Li Feng's specific strength. But before that, Fury needs to determine whether the resurrection of the corpse is true. If it is true, he needs to contact an electronic expert to find a way to repair the broken mobile U-disc. If it is a fake, take it away after subduing Li Feng. It's that simple. As time passed, when Li Feng was lying on the table and about to fall asleep, he vaguely heard the roar of helicopters in the air. Fury, who had been pretending to take a nap with his eyes closed, also heard the noise of the helicopter in the air. He stood up and stretched while looking through the car window to Phil Coulson, who got off the helicopter. Seeing Phil Coulson holding a food bag and beer, Fury pushed Li Feng, who also pretended to take a nap, and said, "Your order has arrived. By the way, the helicopter is delivered to you. This is the first time I have seen you. You ordered this takeaway. It's worth it." Li Feng turned to look at the takeaway. Phil Coulson scratched his head and asked, "Takeaway? When did I order it?" Fury opened the car door and motioned to Phil Coulson to get into the car with a white man in a white coat who was suspected of being a doctor. He said to Li Feng, May told me that you were going to enjoy a delicious lunch in the restaurant, but unfortunately the restaurant was out of order. Accidentally, your delicious lunch time was soaked up, so I asked my capable man to help you repack a delicacy. After speaking, Fury motioned to Phil Coulson to pass the food bag to Li Feng. Li Feng took the food bag and opened his eyes, then looked at the faintly visible Mediterranean hairline on top of Phil Coulson's head, and said, "Thank you, buddy, working under this non-chief must be under a lot of pressure. Remember to take good care of your hair." Non-chief. Phil Coulson glanced at Fury. No one could call it non, except for Fury. However, Fury is also an officer. Phil Coulson dare not say anything. Smiling at Li Feng to express his kindness, Phil Coulson pointed to the doctor sideways and said, "Sir, this is Dr. Owen. He has a doctorate in biology and..." Fury doesn't want to know what education level Owen is now. He just wants to know whether the resurrected corpse is Li Feng's nonsense, or whether it's true. The living corpse was enough to keep him busy for a while. Fury interrupted Phil Coulson's introduction. "Hello Dr. Owen, I need your insight to help me analyze some medical knowledge." While talking, Fury picked up the magic book on the table, prepared to open it, and handed it to Owen. Unfortunately, the magic book was like a model book that couldn't be opened. No matter how much Fury increased his strength, he couldn't open it. Reluctantly, Fury could only look at Li Feng and use his eyes to signal Li Feng to open the magic book. At the same time, he was also delivering the message, "I'm curious how you opened the book." Li Feng shrugged and said that he didn't want to talk about the shape of the book. He opened the book and handed it to Owen, indicating that Owen could sit down and read slowly. Fury doesn't want Phil Coulson to know too much for the time being. When Li Feng opened the magic book, he put his body in front of the book and faced Phil Coulson with his back to Li Feng. He blinked inexplicably, and said, "You and May are on guard. Let May rest." Phil Coulson looked at Li Feng curiously, nodded and said, "Yes, sir." Stepping out of the RV, Phil Coulson, with his back to the RV, blinked at May and said, "Hi, May, the sir, let you rest." May seconds understood what Phil Coulson wanted to express, and said blankly, "Okay, then I will work hard for you. If you need to call me anytime, I will rest in the car." After speaking, May walked towards her car from the rear of the RV, and returned to the car. May took out a bottle of mineral water from the back box and looked at the RV while drinking. She made sure that Li Feng in the RV had not noticed herself. A locator-slapped file size was taken out from the corner of the trunk. Carrying a bottle of mineral water, May walked towards Phil Coulson from the back of the RV, as if she was just about to pass the mineral water in her hand to Phil Coulson. It's just that when May walked to the RV exhaust pipe, she seemed to feel that the laces of her shoes were a little loose. She squatted down and tied the laces and looked around. Seeing that there were no people around, May quickly put the locator adsorbent on the chassis of the RV and got up and walked towards Phil Coulson, handed the mineral water in his hand to the other party. In the beginning, Owen didn't care about the content of the book when he took over the magic book. Doctors are high-income people in the United States, so he has enough money to satisfy his little hobbies, such as collecting old antiques. In addition, Owen also has a cooperative relationship with S.H.I.E.L.D. There are more sources of antiques. Therefore, when Owen took over the magic book, he judged that the pages contained the breadth of history. In addition, Phil Coulson apparently needed a medical expert when he picked up Irving, so Irving has reason to believe that the content Fury showed him was some ancient medical treatment, but needless to say how the ancient medical level was and what to see, just say due to the rapid development of science and technology in modern times, some medical concepts have been judged as ineffective treatments. Irving thinks that the most reliable guess is nothing more than some medical ideas limited by the technology of the times, unless a local tyrant uses this antique book that can be placed in a museum to record the most advanced medical knowledge. So Owen is more interested in the magic book than the content in the book. Fury saw that Irving's attention was all on the material of the magic book, and had to cough, reminding Irving to turn his attention to the text. Regarding Fury, who interrupted his appreciation of antiques, Irving said that because director Alexander Pierce is interested in this mission, let's take a look for you. As Owen looked at the content carefully, he began to mutter, "This is impossible, this is not right," and other words. In Li Feng's eyes, Owen at the moment is like a mentally ill person who needs his hands to locate the text to be read. Fury could see that Owen was yelling that it was impossible, but his incredible expression told him that the USB flash drive given by Li Feng needed to be repaired. Until night fell, Owen, who untied his tie and immersed himself in reading, wiped the non-existent sweat on his forehead, and raised his head to ask Fury for a bottle of water. After Irving drank the whole bottle of water, Fury couldn't wait to ask, "Mr. Irving, I think you can replicate the experiment of resurrecting the corpse." Owen looked at the magic book and sighed. From the content of the book, the experiment of resurrecting the corpse has been completed, and I saw the content of the resurrection of the corpse with an electric eel, indicating that this experiment has some thoughts since then. So when I finish digesting my knowledge, I will not only be able to replicate this experiment, but also improve it in many places to make the resurrected body stronger. Strong. Fury squinted his eyes and asked curiously, "How can ability increase after being resurrected?" Owen nodded, raised his arm, motioned Fury to look at his biceps, and said, "Human muscles are controlled by the brain. Even after professional training, the brain nerves stimulate the muscles to stimulate potential energy. To achieve greater speed, the strength is only 30% to 40%, but the resurrected corpses are not controlled by the brain. After training, they can exert 100% of their muscle power." Fury looked at Li Feng subconsciously. He wanted to ask Li Feng how many Supermans were resurrected in this way, where they were distributed, and whether they would have any impact on society. Li Feng saw Fury's concern and smiled. "There are some things you like to think too much about. I tell you very clearly that no one has been resurrected so far, so you just put your heart in your stomach, and you remember what I said. Are there any side effects of this experiment?" Fury and Owen sneered at the same time. What Fury thought was that since he knew the side effects of the resurrection of the corpse, was it interesting to say that no one was resurrected? And Owen knew that Li Feng was lying by reading the contents of the magic book. The contents of the book had clearly told him that the doctor named Frankenstein had resurrected a corpse from scraps of internal organs. At least one. Owen was thinking about how to report to Pierce, frowning and thinking about the side effects in Li Feng's mouth. At least he could not find a record of the side effects in the book. Maybe I should secretly experiment. Fury leaned a lot of Li Feng up and down, and said, "Listening to what you mean, it seems that I don't want to spread the technology of resurrection. This is resurrection. Don't you know how crazy the world will be when you know that you have this technology? As long as you help them resurrect. Family, money and status are at your fingertips. Li Feng definitely knows how fragrant the resurrection technology is, nothing else. As long as he resurrects all the American presidents lying in the cemetery as a backer, he will not only dare not care about file size anywhere in the White House, but he will also pee for Li Feng." The distance and applaud. "As for these presidents who have no souls and no memories, do you think Lee Summit said it? And if there is no soul, who would believe it? This is a world where science is popular, and the soul does not exist. In addition, people are always dying, and when they belch, they have to rely on Li Feng's technology to resurrect. Didn't you see all the presidents crawling out of the cemetery to take family portraits? They dared to offend Li Feng. Now that Fury has determined that the experiment of resurrecting the corpse is feasible, not wanting to let outsiders know that he has Li Feng too much, he raised his right hand with a complicated face and snapped his fingers lightly. Fury quickly drew his gun at Li Feng when Li Feng's expression changed. Until he saw that Li Feng was just snapping his fingers, Fury hesitation prepared to take the gun back into the holster, and said with no apology on his face, "Sorry, I don't know your specific identity. Only knowing that you can deal with the elite Kree squad, makes me a little nervous." Li Feng, who had finished casting the spell, rolled his eyes and said, "Don't ask me questions about my identity at this time. Have you not felt my obvious kindness? You are still nervous. I think you should go to see a doctor. Do you have a nerve system in your body?" After speaking, Li Feng turned his head to look at Owen, who was hit by the seduction spell, and asked straightforwardly, "Mr. Owen, are you Hydra?" Fury was stunned. Just when he wanted to raise his gun and ask Li Feng about Hydra, he heard Owen say, "Yes. Maiden." Fury subconsciously rushed to Owen. At this time, Fury noticed that Owen's motionless eyes were confused and dull, as this. "Did you snap at hypnotic ability just now?" Fury feels incredible. There is no foreplay and no tools, just a snapping finger, which gives an adult to hypnotic ability, so Austin is a supernatural person, and his ability is hypnotic ability. Was an elite fighter of the Kree killed only by hypnotic ability on the cruise ship. Li Feng heard Owen's answer and let out a long breath. Yes, hypnotic ability. I was thinking if Owen is an ordinary person, what should I do with him to prevent the resurrection of the corpse from leaking? Now it's fine, since Mr. Owen it's from Hydra, you want him to shut up obediently. Fury stared at Li Feng. He had thought that Li Feng was an alien with various high-tech equipment, or could easily defeat 7 or 8 brawny men with astonishing force. He also thought that Li Feng is a supernatural person who can breathe flames or something, but he never thought that Li Feng's ability was hypnotic ability. Hypnotic ability. It's more troublesome than spitting flames. If you are accidentally controlled by Austin, it is very difficult to determine who is controlled by him. What's more terrible is that Austin's ability has nothing to do with the resurrected corpse. It's just that this antique book can say that the resurrection of the corpse took place more than 200 years ago, but the USB flash drive is definitely a product of now, so the method of resurrecting the corpse can only be obtained from somewhere by Austin. While raising Li Feng's danger level, Fury also sorted out many questions in his mind, such as Austin's true identity, who he was working for, and so on. Fury, who has determined to subdue Li Feng and bring it back to S.H.I.E.L.D. for careful interrogation, even thinks about the question of who should be sent to monitor in the future even if he evaluates that Li Feng's abilities will not get out of control, and agrees to return to life in society. After all, a snap is hypnotic ability. The ability is a headache. Who knows that Li Summit will not give the inspectors to hypnotic ability. Seeing Fury handcuffed Owen expressionlessly, Li Feng curled his lips in disdain. He guessed Fury's plan. After all, this guy is a ruthless person who can stare at himself in the shower. 9. Fury opened the car door and prepared to ask Phil Coulson to bring Owen back to S.H.I.E.L.D., but he did not expect that Li Feng suddenly kicked himself off the RV. Before Fury took a gun, he heard Li Feng say, "I'm going to sleep. I hate people watching when I sleep, so please leave meticulously. If you have anything to say tomorrow, and also, keep the little things in your pocket, but don't let me see the streets all day long." Patience with amnesia. The kicked Fury only wondered if Li Feng was about to escape, just like disappearing inexplicably while on a cruise ship. He took out his pistol and looked at Li Feng's palm firmly with one eye, in case Li Feng suddenly snapped his finger at hypnotic ability, and said, "For the sake of saving me before you, and the good we get along with, as long as you and me when you return to the game, record your ability on the list, and I promise you will not be harmed." Hee hee, Li Feng sneered, then closed the door of the car and said, "The sky is big, the sleep is the biggest, what will I say tomorrow?" After speaking, Li Feng opened the roof of the car, ignoring Fury who was still knocking on the door, carrying 2 bottles of beer bought by Phil Coulson and chicken with peanuts, climbed onto the roof, enjoying a bite of peanuts and chicken. Phil Coulson glanced at Li Feng sitting on the roof of the car, and whispered to Fury, "Sir, what do you do now? Mr. Austin is obviously not malicious, and we can't easily use lethal weapons." Fury yelled at Li Feng in an angry voice, "Eating the food I bought still breathes me, so I can only watch but not drink, what about your conscience?" Li Feng didn't even look at Fury at first, saying so much, "It's nothing more than afraid that I will run away and want to squat on the roof of the car to watch me closely. I blame you." Although Fury thinks he is climbing a RV, this is a trivial matter to him who is agile, but in order to prevent Li Feng from being inexplicably hypnotic ability, Fury thought for a while and finally let May drive the car in front of the RV, blocking the RV to prevent Li Feng from leaving, after waiting for the support to come and forcibly take Li Feng away. Li Feng is not stupid, he will stay where he is waiting to be caught, so when Fury and Phil Coulson are a little away from the RV, they quietly open the portal. With the unbelievable gazes of the Fury trio, an orange-yellow aperture suddenly appeared under the RV, engulfing the RV in an instant. Fury looked at Li Feng who had disappeared suddenly, patted his car door fiercely, and cursed. Fury walked around the place where the RV was previously parked, and made sure that the RV was disappearing rather than invisible. He turned to May and asked, "Did you put the locator on the RV?" While holding the tracker in her hand, May said, "Definitely." After a while, Fury and Phil Coulson watched May tap the instrument suspiciously, and muttered, "What's wrong? What's the matter?" Fury walked to May, glanced at the meridian dimension marked on the instrument, stared and said, Afghanistan. You will not tell me that Austin, who was still in front of us just now, suddenly disappeared and appeared in Afghanistan. Bar. With a helpless look, May said, Sir, I can only tell you. I'm pretty sure that the tracker is installed on the RV. Either the tracker is broken, or Austin is in Afghanistan. On the side, Phil Coulson hesitation, and said, Sir, do you remember that we escorted the supernatural person with the long bones on the back during the day? He also disappeared suddenly. Do you think Mr. Austin did it? Fury pondered for a while, then shook his head and said, I hope he didn't do it, otherwise the next time I meet, I will not give fried peanuts but metal peanuts. Looking at the disappearing RV, Fury touched the USB flash drive in his pocket with one hand and rubbed his eyebrows and asked, Contact the logistics and ask them to send someone to see how Austin disappeared. Phil Coulson called S.H.I.E.L.D. and smiled and said, I looked like a wormhole opened in time and space. Can you still laugh? Fury is in a terrible mood now. Leaving Austin aside, it is enough to worry about the fact that the resurrection of the corpse and Owen or Hydra. Taking out the USB flash drive from his pocket, Fury handed the USB flash drive to Phil Coulson, while staring at Phil Coulson's eyes, and said, Fix this thing, remember, no one can check the contents. This is level 10, confidential information. Phil Coulson was stunned, then solemnly nodded after receiving the USB flash drive and said, Yes, sir. May glanced at the USB drive curiously, guessing if Austin gave Fury this stuff, and guessing where Austin is. Anyway, she didn't believe that anyone could suddenly run from the United States to Afghanistan in the blink of an eye. As for Li Feng, lying on the roof of a RV surrounded by deserts with his brain buzzing and basking in the sun. As Li Feng with a little knowledge of geography, it took him a long time to remember that he had forgotten the time difference between Afghanistan and the United States. New York was already dark, but Afghanistan is still morning. After taking a sip of the beer in his hand, Li Feng threw the bottle on the desert, turned over and got into the RV, picked up the map and prepared to find a beautiful place to organize his spells. For a long time, Li Feng pointed to the address on the map, and silently recalled in his heart, Portland, which belongs to the western part of the United States, is near the mouth of the Willamette River into the Columbia River. Because it is close to the Pacific Ocean, it has an oceanic climate and winter is more summer. More humid, because this climate is more suitable for growing roses, so there are many rose plantations in the city, and Portland is also known as the City of Roses. Finding a seaside with fewer people in Portland is the ideal place for me to practice spells. But before leaving Afghanistan, Li Feng beats around the RV, while exhaling his energy. I have to check the RV. After all, where the agent leader has stayed, it is always uneasy to not check. Soon, Li Feng found the locator hidden under the rear of the car and threw it aside, whistling, boarding the RV, and opening the portal to Portland. After a kick of the gas, Li Feng had already arrived in Portland. With a portal, travel is so convenient. One day later, an armed helicopter appeared over the desert and circled the locator. Phil Coulson got off the helicopter with the tracker and walked straight to the locator. While picking up the locator, Phil Coulson also noticed the wine bottle on the ground in the distance. Phil Coulson squatted and looked at the bottle in doubt. Li Feng drank the wine he bought. Naturally, Phil Coulson recognized that it was the beer he bought. After thinking about it, Phil Coulson carefully filled the beer bottle into the exhibit bag. He wants to take it back for a laboratory test to see if the fingerprint on it is Li Feng's. Although the appearance of the locator has proved that Li Feng did suddenly go to Afghanistan from the United States, Phil Coulson still couldn't believe it. If Li Feng's fingerprints could be collected on the beer bottle, Phil Coulson said that they are in big trouble. A capable person who can hypnotic ability and can run around the world, let alone arrest, can't even monitor it. Portland, a rocky, deserted seashore. Li Feng parked the RV in the bush and simply disguised himself. First he stood on the roof and looked around to make sure that no one was around. Then, carrying Leonore's modified magical spell for the spell scroll in Ancient One, he walked straight into the dense forest, opened the mirror space to practice spells. Prying spells out of the devil's mouth is not an easy task. Even if Li Feng thinks he has angel feathers to restrain the devil, he needs to be always careful. Before unlocking the seal of the devil, Li Feng must first understand the magic of the devil and learn how to restrain the devil. Spells. And this study is more than half a year. In the mirror space, after half a year of understanding and practice, Li Feng, who believes he has mastered the magic of restraining the devil, carefully spread the scroll sealed with the devil on the ground, holding in one hand the wooden box containing the pseudo-angel feathers given by Leonore, while unlocking the seal on the scroll. The old man devil has just been freed from the seal and can't wait to perceive the existence of hell in order to restore some strength. It's a pity that the dimensions are different, let alone whether he can perceive hell. Even the perception of Duyu is different from his hometown in his impression. Moreover, based on his current strength, it is strange to perceive hell in the mirror space. Li Feng leaned on the wooden box, smiled and looked at the bewildered devil, and said, "Old man, don't be busy contacting hell. How about chatting with me to relieve boredom?" The devil glanced at the crystal walls of the space around him like uneven glass, and then at his broken hands and feet. He realized that he could not escape for the time being. And he also understands that since the opposite magician chose to seal himself instead of killing him on the spot like a demon hunter, it shows that this magician has something to ask for himself. No matter what the magician wants to get information from hell, this is all he is alive. The cost of escape. Thinking of this, the devil thought about what Li Feng wanted from him, and said, "The devil's name is very long. I won't say the full name. You can call me Dabi, my respected magician. What is your name?" Although in The Warrior Slaughter, the devil fights with his fists, it does not mean that the devil can't use spells. Li Feng is not sure if the devil in front of him will secretly use his birth date and name. Curse spells. Just in case, Li Feng decided to make up a name. "My name is Jerry." Dabi smiled and said, "Jerry Magician, I don't know what you have to order." While talking, Dabi wanted to sit up and secretly tune to the few mana in his body. He just had a broken hand and foot, and he couldn't sit down even though he was struggling. He could only say helplessly, "Can you help me? It is already a sin for you to give courtesy, and it is even more impolite to lie down and talk to you. I am also a demon with restraint." Li Feng can't play the mirror space like Ancient One, but he can still control every move in the mirror space, so when the devil pretends to sit up but can't do it, Li Feng has already discovered the mana fluctuations in the devil. Putting his lips down, Li Feng opened the wooden box and sneered, "What? I still don't give up, thinking about how to escape. You want me to get close to you and cast a spell on me?" At the moment when Li Feng opened the wooden box, Dabi already felt the energy to restrain himself. The energy emitted from the pseudo-angel feathers corroded his body quickly like strong acid. Beidou rolled on the ground in pain, away from Li Feng, who was close to him, as if doing so could reduce the pain, while wailing, "Jerry, my friend, don't come over, please, don't." Li Feng, holding the wooden box, glanced at the fake angel feathers, and scratched his head. "Why do you look at Dabi as a little girl about to be violated? This is a bit exaggerated. I don't know why, I suddenly like to hear you wailing. It would be better if it was louder." Thinking of this, Li Feng walked into the rolling Dabi and said, "Now, are you still thinking about how to leave?" "No, I dare not," said Dabi, who had already rolled to the edge of the mirrored space, using a vocal cord that seemed to be cooked by boiling water, and said, "Master, I am willing to surrender to you and swear to be your servant. Remove the wooden box. Is there any loyalty to the devil's surrender?" So Li Feng directly regarded Dabi's oath as an unsmelling ass, but Li Feng still closed the wooden box, condensing the energy emitted by the feathers. He wanted the magic of the devil, and how did Dabi introduce the spell when he died? Li Feng looked at Dabi, who was scalded all over, gasping heavily, and said, "What do you use to guarantee your loyalty?" "Prison spells." Dabi looked at the wooden box in Li Feng's hands in fear, and said, "I know a kind of slave contract. After signing the contract, if you think about it, my soul will be burned clean by hellfire." Li Feng's eyes lit up. He hurriedly took out a blank scroll and pen, threw it to Dabi, and said, "Now, record the spells you know on the scroll. Remember, it's all the spells." Dabi looked at Li Feng with a dumb face, raised his disabled hands, and said with a trembling corner of his mouth, "Master, what do you want me to write? Would you give me energy and let me repair my broken limb, or I said you record spells?" Without Ancient One's teaching, Li Feng would have foolishly told Dabi to recite and record the spell himself, but now, "Write spells yourself." Li Feng only knows that the devil has a contract. I don't know how to operate it. If Dubby is talking about a certain contract, and Li Feng writes stupidly, won't he complete the contract? Who is the master and who is the servant at that time? As for Li Feng learning spells from the Plague Devil before, in the words of Ancient One, it is fateful. If the Plague Devil is smarter and shifts the focus of his eyes from Thiki of Solomon to Li Feng, he only needs to engage in the spells he teaches. A little ghost, Li Feng may have been possessed by the opponent. Chapter 51. Regarding Dubby's suggestion to repair his broken limbs, Li Feng said that after his biased dark mana was transmitted to Dubby, it would indeed allow him to repair the broken hand, but in this way, wouldn't his mana attributes and characteristics be exposed to Dubby? In case Duobi still had any whole cards hidden, Li Feng would be a bit more dangerous. After thinking about it, Li Feng pretended to open the wooden box and threatened, "What nonsense, write with a pen in your mouth, otherwise don't blame me for being polite, don't think that there is only you in the world, and I will change to a servant." Quote. Dubby is a little confused. Write spells with your mouth. What is this operation? Among humans facing the devil, he has seen someone who thinks he can control the devil by his own intelligence, and he has also seen someone who is cautious, but he has never even seen someone like Li Feng who dare not even copy spells. Faced with the human magician who is so careful about me, the success rate of my escape plan is declining. Seeing that Li Feng was about to open the wooden box, releasing energy that was like sulfuric acid to himself, Dubby was extremely depressed and could only use the most biting pen, strenuously writing slave contract spells. Seeing that Dubby wrote worse than himself, Li Feng was secretly happy, took out the compressed biscuits from his pocket, and ate them happily. He decided, as long as people later laughed at his writing as ugly as a worm crawled over. He took out the scroll written by Dubby and let the other person see what the real worm-crawling text was. I believe the other party will bow and apologize to me. Dubby has more spells than the Plague Devil. In this regard, Li Feng can only say that Dubby deserves to be a scientific researcher who can understand the resurrection experiment, and is a trusted and favored subordinate of Nobilici. But, they have as much thoughts as spells. Occasionally glanced at the magic scroll recorded by Dubby, Li Feng sneered and pointed out a few wrong ways of casting. He said to Dubby that he was proficient in devil spells, and at the same time he opened the wooden box and used fake angel feathers to listen to more than one paragraph. Haldan. Until Dubby had only one last breath, Li Feng held up the shield to prevent the irritating smell of the devil from being injured by the fake angel feathers from entering his brain, stimulating his brain not to be unnecessary and to prevent too much Than's sudden attack. I saw Li Feng squatting halfway in front of Dubby and sneered, "Do you think I don't understand the magic of the devil at all?" While speaking, Li Fengchuo raised his right hand, and a ball of green flame suddenly rose from his palm. At a glance, Dubby was sure that this cruel green flame was the peculiar flame of the Plague Devil, the Plague Flame. In addition to being able to burn, this flame can spread like a plague. It can truly be a spark and ignite the entire grassland. It is still indestructible by ordinary water. After 2 seconds, Li Feng took a deep breath to express his anger, and said viciously, "Hurry up and write me the correct spell." In fact, Li Feng can only control the plague flame for 2 seconds. The deep roar suck is for excessive mental exhaustion after casting the spell. He needs to gasp for breath but Dubby doesn't know all this. He only knows that Li Feng does know some devil spells. If every spell has a trap, Li Feng will definitely see it, and it will inevitably be another torture. If only a few spells are interspersed with traps, it is really difficult for Li Feng to find out, but the problem is that Dubby doesn't know which devil spells Li Feng knows. Is it possible that every trap is removed, and he really teaches Li Feng the devil spells honestly? The only certainty is that Li Feng doesn't know the slave contract spell. Maybe this is the opportunity. Before coming up with a specific way to escape, Dubby reluctantly accepted his short fate as a servant, thinking that as long as he left the space covered by glass, he would immediately return to hell, ending the fate of the servant and waiting for the next time. Make a comeback. As for the constraints of the slave contract, do you think Dubby will truthfully explain it clearly? Most of the magic spells of the devil have similarities, so Dubby is not sure whether Li Feng can see the trap of the slave contract. In the end, after Dubby's thoughts, he taught Li Feng a spell with many loopholes. These loopholes do not affect Li Feng's control of Dubby, but in the same way, Dobby can rely on these loopholes to break free of Li Feng's control at any time. The only thing Dobby didn't expect was that Li Feng had no plans to let him leave the mirror space. For the next 3 days, Dobby felt that his whole person was abolished, especially his mouth with the pen in his mouth. He had completely lost consciousness. Fortunately, he had recorded all the spells he knew on several scrolls. This kind of hard time can be a turnaround. Putting down the pen in his mouth, Dobby looked at Li Feng, who was squatting in the corner of the mirrored space, studying the slave contract, then vaguely glanced at the wooden box beside Li Feng with a hateful look, and said, "My respected Master Jerry, I have already recorded all the spells. Look, is it possible to cast slave contract spells on me?" Li Feng looked up at Dobby, then looked at the scroll on the ground, grinned and said, "Do you want to leave the mirror space?" Dobby said without hesitation, "My respected master, as long as you perform a slave contract on me, I will be your most loyal servant. How can a noble person like you be without a caring servant? Please, allow me to stay by your side and wait for you without leaving. This is also a humble wish as mine." Li Feng. To be honest, after listening to Dobby's words, Li Feng only thinks that this guy is a talent, and this horse shoots comfortably. Li Feng grabbed the wooden box, smiled and got up and walked to Dobby's side, and drew out a long knife to flatten the scroll for inspection. Li Feng used a long knife to flip through the scroll. Dobby had seen it many times in the past 3 days. He understood that this was Li Feng to prevent himself from making hands and feet on the scroll, so he did not dare to touch the scroll directly. "But, are you too careful like this?" Before Dobby's defamation was finished, Li Feng cut off Dobby's head with a knife in his hand. From the beginning to the end, Li Feng had never thought of making Dobby his servant, let alone letting him go. Now that he has what he wants, what reason does Li Feng have for Dobby to survive in this world? Seeing a ball of fire escaping from Dobby's body, Li Feng grinned and sneered out a spell that would completely wipe out the devil. Until the soul fireball representing Dobby gradually shrank and finally extinguished, Li Feng stooped to pack the scrolls on the ground, and raised his hand to open the portal to leave the mirrored space. Back in the real world, Li Feng threw the scrolls and other items on the RV, immediately took off his clothes facing the sea, and stretched his waist to do the warm-up exercise before swimming. For the past 3 days, Li Feng has been gnawing various cans and compressed biscuits every day, and the birds are almost fading out of his mouth. Not to mention studying various spells and exercising in the mirror space, which has caused the body to be slimy, the most important thing. It was the devil's stench on Dobby's body that seriously polluted the air in the mirror space. If he stayed in the mirror space for a few more days, Li Feng said that he would almost be killed by the smell of sweat on his body. Rinse it with seawater. After returning to the RV, Li Feng washed the seawater again with fresh water, put on dry clothes, and arrived in a small town after a half-hour drive. In the small town, Li Feng was familiar with the residents to call on Roar. In the past 6 months or so, Li Feng would go to the small town to relax every time he practiced spells. After going back and forth, he naturally got acquainted with the residents of the small town. Residents in the small town also know this weird man who drives an RV and likes to live on an uninhabited rocky beach. They say that Li Feng is strange because they are curious about what Li Feng does. They have to know that there is no work to do on the rocky beach, and Li Feng, who has no income from work, will buy everything that can be stored for a long time every time he goes to a convenience store. Canned and compressed biscuits. As usual, Li Feng parked his RV to live in a second-floor store. The first floor was transformed into a convenience store. He picked up a bulging shoulder bag with too many spell scrolls and walked into the convenience store. It was not in front of the cashier. "Man," Li Feng shouted. "Robert, here is business, 2 boxes of compressed biscuits, 2 bags of flour, and all kinds of canned fruits and luncheon meat." A burly but kind-looking middle-aged uncle poked his head out from behind the cargo rack, rolled his eyes and said, "Count the time, you should have finished the last compressed biscuits." While talking, Robert led a slightly shy, about 10-year-old mixed-race girl out of the cargo rack. Robert pushed the little girl in front of him, rubbed her hair, and smiled. "This is the little girl I adopted last month, isn't it pretty?" Li Feng raised his brows and said, "If you want to arouse my idea of having a daughter, then you have succeeded, but if you continue to sell your niece as my girlfriend, don't talk about it." It is not the first time that Robert has promoted his niece to Li Feng, which makes Li Feng a little speechless. It's not that the United States is a country that likes freedom, and the slogan of free love is shouted every day. When marriage introductions are popular, it's not at all. Introduce me to a girlfriend when I understand my situation, and I am bold enough. Although I have never seen your niece who is so ugly that you need to rely on sales to find your boyfriend, but your niece's Natasha Romanoff is enough for me to tremble. Also, I never thought about starting a family in the Marvel world, so you should save your mouthwater about dating your niece. Li Feng squatted in front of the girl with a smile that he considered to be the most kind, and said, "Little sister, what is your name?" The little girl glanced at Robert timidly. After receiving the encouraging look from Robert, she turned to look at Li Feng and whispered, "Sky." Sky. Li Feng felt that the name was familiar, but he didn't think much about it. He smiled and picked up a car accessories from the cargo rack, a Hawaiian doll dancing in a green grass skirt, and said, "I'm here for you." Quote. Sky looked up at Robert hopefully. It wasn't until Robert nodded that Sky took the doll with a smile and said to Li Feng, "This is the first time I have received a gift. I like it very much. Thank you, uncle." Li Feng got up and rubbed Sky's hair, signaled Robert to move the items he needed to buy to the RV, pointed to the bar next door, and said, "I have been busy for so long, I have to relax." Rolling his eyes, Robert rolled up his sleeves and walked towards the warehouse to move out all the dry food that Li Feng wanted. He laughed and cursed. Just staying at that deserted rocky beach all day long. Are you busy watching the sunrise or busy watching the sunset? I think you are idle all day long. It is important to quickly find a job and start a family. Li Feng ignored Robert's scolding and said goodbye to Sky and went straight to the bar. Not long after Li Feng walked into the bar, Robert put some canned biscuits and other dry food in the RV. Taking advantage of the timing of placing the dry food, Robert looked up and down everything in the RV with his patrolling eyes, and even hurriedly opened the locker to look for it. What's going on? After a while, Robert, who had found nothing, got out of the RV, and after looking away from the bar, he hurriedly ran into his convenience store warehouse while inferring whether Li Feng would leave the town in a short time. Inside the warehouse, Robert pushed a pile of messy cardboard boxes in the corner, opened the small secret door on the wall, and picked up the secret line phone in the secret door. After pressing a few numbers, he waited for a woman's voice in the microphone. Said, "I'm Robert, Austin went to the town to buy supplies as predicted in advance." On the other end of the phone, the woman said in an inaudible voice, "Okay, I will try to get to the scene within half a day. You can hold Austin as much as possible while ensuring your own safety. By the way, you found it in his car. Is there any special equipment?" Robert smiled bitterly and said, "Sir, are you sure that there are special equipment on the Austin car? Since ordering me to move to a small town to open a convenience store, I got in his car and checked it 3 times, and nothing was found. Unless you give me a chance, let me disassemble the RV into parts for inspection, otherwise I can't find any special equipment. Also, I'm familiar with that guy, but I'm not familiar enough. Can hold him half a day." Unfortunately, there was a busy tone on the other end of the phone before Robert finished speaking. Robert slowly put down the phone and covered the secret door with a cardboard box again. When he walked out of the warehouse, Robert rubbed a depressed face to restore his face to a kind face, thinking about what method should be used to hold Li Feng without making Li Feng suspicious. At the same time, Robert is also very curious about who Li Feng is. When he received an assignment from S.H.I.E.L.D. to open a convenience store in a small town, he only knew that Li Feng was a dangerous person, and he was carrying a special device that S.H.I.E.L.D. coveted. But because of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s hierarchical management system, he still doesn't know where Li Feng, who is kind at first glance, is dangerous, nor can he see any device on that slightly luxurious RV. "I only know that every time I contact Li Feng, I have to write a bunch of evaluation reports on Li Feng's behavior, and S.H.I.E.L.D. immediately dispatched a bunch of logistics personnel to do various checks on himself, especially the psychological assessment and hypnotic ability treatment over and under the covers. I feel that I have experienced hypnotic ability questions so many times, my soul has been sublimated, and I can ignore any hypnotic ability means." This also made him guess whether Li Feng was a humanoid self-propelled hypnotic ability machine. After contacting him, his brain would mutate, such as becoming stupid or becoming a dementia patient. When he walked to the door, Robert glanced at Sky, who was sitting in front of the convenience store. He couldn't help but think of an idea. It was just, Austin is really a dangerous man. Will Sky be in danger if he touches him? Here Robert is still wondering whether to use Sky as an excuse to hold Li Feng, while Li Feng sitting in front of the bar feels something is not right in the bar. It's not night, so Li Feng understands that there is no one in the bar and only one customer is here, but what does it mean to smell a little bleach on the tip of his nose? Is the bar undergoing general cleaning and disinfection? The question is, apart from the smell of bleach, how can the bloody smell be explained? Hank, the bar owner, is killing chickens and cooking. I haven't heard that Americans still kill chickens by themselves. Don't the supermarkets sell them well and clean them? Could it be that Hank bought chickens from the farm today and killed them for dinner? Li Feng knocked on the bar and shouted at the kitchen door behind the bar, "Hank, come out to pick up the guests." At this moment, a man with messy hair, curled cuffs, and a little blood on his collar pushed open the kitchen door and walked to Li Feng, smiling and saying, "My name is Calvin, Hank's friend. He has something to go out tonight. I just came back, do you have anything to tell me?" Li Feng noticed the bulging veins on the neck of this homeless Calvin, as if he had just used stimulants in the kitchen, with an excited expression on his face. And as Calvin opened the kitchen door, Li Feng could clearly feel the bloody smell coming. Frowning, Li Feng lightly cast his right hand and brushed his eyes. This is a kind of spell he improved after studying the notes sent to him by Mordor for half a year, and Li Feng called it the Eye of Magic. The only effect of this spell is to see the spiritual body of the creature. Originally, Li Feng's Dharma Eye was mainly to identify whether humans were possessed by the devil, but after completing the Dharma Eye, it was discovered that this spell could not only see the demons hidden in the crowd, but also, as it is now, to see the Calvin spirit in front of him. The body is somewhat defective, which infers that Calvin's brain is ill, that is, the neurotic patient who is said to be murdering and not breaking the law. Li Feng turned his head and looked at the kitchen. Through his Dharma Eye, he clearly saw a human spirit lying on the ground slowly dissipating into the air. Needless to say, the one lying on the ground was the bar owner Hank. Li Feng was a little entangled. He thought, I don't know or care about whether the American law should shoot a neuropathy after killing someone. I just want to know if I will go to jail after killing a mentally ill murderer. Calvin looked down at the blood on his body and followed Li Feng's gaze to the kitchen. Calvin seemed to see Li Feng's curiosity about the kitchen. He smiled and gestured Li Feng into the kitchen, pointing to the blood on the collar and said, I don't think I'm killing someone. Even though I look like a murderer, I have blood on my body. Before Hank left, I asked me to cut the beef leg that had just been thawed in the kitchen into small pieces, but I clumsily used the kitchen. It's a mess, can you help me? I'll buy you a drink then. Niu Shui, your sister, I'm blind or stupid. Li Feng smiled and got up and was about to leave the bar. He had already decided not to kill the neurotic because he couldn't commit it. Li Feng's name has been registered in S.H.I.E.L.D. Once he kills, he will surely alarm the people of S.H.I.E.L.D. At that time, he can only leave Portland and find a place to practice spells again. Secondly, Hank has died a long time ago. His relationship with Hank is not good enough to avenge him despite the exposure of his identity. After leaving the bar, he called the police anonymously and asked the police to deal with the neurotic and help Hank avenge him. Calvin kept smiling, and watched Li Feng walk out of the bar motionlessly, and turned back to the kitchen to deal with Hank's body. Simply drag Hank into the freezer and hide it. Calvin stood at the window, squeezing the corners of his clothes with his hands because of tension, and looked at Sky in the distance through the window with happiness. As soon as Li Feng walked out of the bar, he heard Robert say to Li Feng anxiously, Austin, can you help me see the convenience store? I have to go out in a hurry. It will take half a day. Li Feng walked to the public telephone booth on the side of the road, waved his hand and said, if you close the convenience store, you won't be able to do it. Will you starve to death if the convenience store is closed for a long time? Robert cast a glance at Sky and thought, since this can't keep Austin, it can only be this way. Gritting his teeth, Robert walked up to Li Feng and said, the problem is that I can't take Sky, but I don't worry about leaving her alone in the convenience store. Li Feng turned his head to look at Sky, frowning and said, what's the matter? Leave in such a hurry. Robert pretended to be anxious and said, my wife was in a car accident and was rescued in the hospital. As you know, the environment in the rescue room is not easy, so I took Sky with me. I am afraid she will be frightened out of the corpse when she arrives. Negative. Li Feng thought for a while and felt that he was fine. It would be better to help Robert watch the kids. Although Sky was a bit shy, he was quite cute. Thinking of this, Li Feng nodded and said, "Yes, but I won't help you." Looking at the convenience store, "I will drive Sky around in the RV, and let Sky get familiar with the environment of the town by the way." Hearing Li Feng's words, Robert sighed in secret and said, "Sky still doesn't know that I'm leaving for a long time, I'll go to discuss with her." After speaking, Robert walked over to Sky, whispering something. Judging from the fact that Robert dared to introduce himself to his girlfriend without knowing it well, Li Feng felt that Robert was the kind of courageous and greasy person, so he didn't care about the behavior of Robert's adopted daughter to take care of him for a period of time. After calling the police, Li Feng frowned and walked to Sky. For some reason, he always felt that someone nearby was secretly observing himself. Robert squatted down in front of Sky and said apologetically, "Little Sky, Uncle Austin will take you around the town. You have to be good, and I'll be back in half a day. Then I will treat you to delicious food." Quote. Sky nodded obediently, followed Li Feng with a gift from Li Feng, and got into the RV. The scene where Robert handed Sky to Li Feng was clearly seen by Calvin hiding by the bar window. The raised fist of the blue veins indicated that he was angry now. Until Li Feng drove the RV slowly away from the convenience store, Calvin, who could not see Sky, reluctantly retracted his gaze. After venting in the bar, he took the scalpel out of his pocket and went straight to the car that had just gotten into the car. Robert, who drove out of the convenience store, said with a smile, "Hello, I have something to ask you for help." Robert didn't think much about it. When he rolled down the car window and just wanted to ask, "What help is needed?" Calvin reached out and grabbed Robert's hair, and cut through Robert's trachea and arteries with the surgery in his hand. Robert clutched the gushing wound, stared at Calvin, and seemed to want to know why Calvin wanted to kill him. Calvin pushed Robert back into the car, grinning and said, "I know who you are. You are the murderers who snatched my daughter, and you broke my originally happy home to pieces." After finishing speaking, Calvin looked in the direction where Sky disappeared with a ruined expression, and muttered, "Daisy, my dear daughter, when I finish dealing with these people who are watching you, I will pick you up." Family. Just as Li Feng was taking Sky around the town, a technologically sense flying plane was on its way to the town. Inside the plane, Natasha Romanoff, with short burgundy hair, was looking down at a piece of information about Li Feng. Originally, this mission had nothing to do with Natasha Romanoff, but Fury took into account that Li Feng had no record of hurting people, so he ordered Natasha Romanoff to come and arrest people. Natasha Romanoff was still very confused when he received the task. It's just a matter of catching an individual. Are so many agents in the bureau eating dry? Why should she make time for the task? It wasn't until the intelligence that Austin's ability was hypnotic ability, and he possessed the equipment suspected of opening a wormhole, did Natasha Romanoff understand why Fury wanted her to take over the task. The task this time is mainly about arresting people. When a deadly weapon cannot be used, it is not bad that ordinary agents cannot be hypnotic ability when they access Li Feng. Using remote anesthesia guns and other equipment, Fury is not sure how much measurement can fascinate Li Feng. So this terrible measurement of anesthetics troubles Fury. After all, in Fury's eyes, Li Feng is a supernatural person, and the physical fitness of supernatural persons is generally higher than that of ordinary people, but how much higher it has to be verified. What if the metering of anesthetics is too small and Li Feng still has the strength to activate the wormhole equipment and run away? They are not sure when and where they will appear next time they find Li Feng's figure. If the anesthetic was too much and Li Feng was shot on the spot, this would not be in line with Fury's original intention. He still wanted to recruit Li Feng to S.H.I.E.L.D. In the end, Fury felt that if he wanted to catch Li Feng alive, he could only send an agent that could resist hypnotic ability, and because Wormhole's tall technology needed to be kept secret, the level of the agent sent could not be too low. After thinking about it, Fury can only put his idea on Natasha Romanoff. Whoever let her be born as a spy was originally highly resistant to hypnotic ability. In addition, after the body was strengthened, Fury had reason to believe that Li Feng could not hypnotic ability Natasha Romanoff. As for how Natasha Romanoff subdues Li Feng, this is not within Fury's consideration. What he should consider is if Li Feng resists, what means should be used to treat Li Feng's heart shadow after Natasha Romanoff escorts Li Feng. In addition, Natasha Romanoff's agent level is not low, and she can understand the technology of contact with wormhole, and believe that she can keep it secret. On the plane, Natasha Romanoff opened the report on Li Feng's assessment, and immediately saw that Li Feng likes to stay in the RV, living on the unmanned rocky beach. Natasha Romanoff curled his lips and murmured, "Is it because I like to live in a no-man's land because of my isolation, or because Austin knows that he can't control the hypnotic ability and is afraid that the residents of hypnotic ability will inadvertently harm innocent people? Considering the RV home that can move at any time, I prefer Li Feng to be withdrawn, not good at communicating with people, and likes to be a home from all over the world, but it is also this kind of personality that is detached from society and likes to live in his own world, which leads him to for human society, the disadvantages outweigh the benefits, because as long as someone provokes Austin, this guy will probably take revenge regardless of his powers. The biggest headache is where did he get the equipment to open the wormhole? Is there such a powerful laboratory on Earth? It's his ability to not open the wormhole, right? It's not right, at least I haven't heard that the ability person has two kind of more than ability. Putting down the information, Natasha Romanoff felt a little headache. Judging from all the signs, it was strange that this Austin didn't resist when he was hunted down by himself. After taking Sky slowly around the town for a few laps, Li Feng drove Haitian parked the RV on the side of the road, took out a pack of potato chips from the locker and threw it to Sky, reaching out to get over the RV car. The bed on the wall said, "Are you sleepy? Do you have a habit of taking a nap?" Sky glanced at the bed, with a little nervousness in his heart, for fear that Li Feng was a person with a beastly heart. While looking out the car window looking for passers-by, he shook his head and said, "Thank you, uncle, I don't want to sleep." Li Feng thought for a while, took out the handle game console from the corner and handed it to Sky, saying, "I'm a little sleepy, let me take a nap. If you are bored, you can play games. The snacks are in the locker. What do you want to eat? Take it yourself. You can treat my RV as your own home, as long as you don't demolish my home, you can toss it as you like." Li Feng didn't know how seductive the word, home, in his mouth was to Sky. Since Sky's record, she has been changing adoptive parents, sometimes for a few days or a few months, she was forced to leave. The adoptive parents' home she had just gotten acquainted with made her feel like an unwanted child. Sky was absent-mindedly playing the game, and from time to time he quietly looked at the sleeping Li Feng. After a while, Sky, who had no intention of playing games, got up and fumbled around in the RV, dreaming from time to time that if he had a RV that could shelter from the wind and rain, it would be so good, even if one day the whole world would not want her, she will also have a car of her own. Li Feng didn't know, because of his unintentional words, Vibe, who lived in a truck in the future and hacked into the S.H.I.E.L.D. database with a laptop, was traveling around in a second-hand RV when he was caught by Phil Coulson. I don't know what Sky's expression looks like when he is turning into a Vibe woman in the future, driving Li Feng's current RV and calling Uncle Li Feng. On the other side, an airplane full of high-tech appearance landed on the outskirts of the town. After Natasha Romanoff checked the equipment he was carrying, he walked off the airplane wearing casual clothes with an expression of, "I'm here for vacation." Before reaching Robert's convenience store, as if full of curiosity about the town, Natasha Romanoff, who was looking around, frowned and looked at the police car in the distance. Feeling something was wrong, Natasha Romanoff sat in a cafe like walking tired. After ordering a cup of coffee, he deliberately lowered his collar a little, and curiously asked the barman, "What happened in the town?" "Me. Seeing a lot of police cars, I came to travel to relax, but I don't want to ruin my travel plan because of something." The waiter looked at the police car in the distance, and then looked at Natasha Romanoff with a curious look. Perhaps it was the effect of the beauty halo. The waiter looked at Natasha Romanoff's collar vaguely, and whispered, "It seems to be in a small town. There was a perverted murderer who killed the bar owner and convenience store owner in one day. If you feel scared, I can protect you." After speaking, the male waiter blinked his eyes and embroidered the muscles, indicating that he is caring and strong, and can give Natasha Romanoff a sense of security. Does Natasha Romanoff need protection? It's not funny. Natasha Romanoff got up suddenly, pretending to remember something suddenly, smiled and hurriedly left the cafe after saying goodbye to the waiter. Going to a corner, Natasha Romanoff took out his mobile phone and dialed the number. After Fury's voice came from the microphone, he said, "Sir, Robert is killed. Will the mission continue?" On the other side of the phone, Fury's voice banging on the computer, said in a slightly surprised tone, "The task has changed, and the safety of Robert's adopted daughter is the priority. Check who did it while ensuring the safety of the little girl, if necessary. Let Austin help, just say you are mine. What did you find? Regardless of the supernatural person and the suspected wormhole, protect the little girl first." With some uncertainty, Natasha Romanoff asked, "Sir, are you really talking about the adopted daughter and not Robert's family? Or is there something special about this adopted daughter?" Fury, sitting in front of the computer, stared at the Sky profile he had just found, took a deep breath, and said quietly, "Natasha Romanoff, it's not good to know too much." In fact, Fury didn't know why Sky's information appeared in the SHIELD database. He asked Natasha Romanoff to change tasks out of intuition. Natasha Romanoff shrugged and said, "Well, I still understand hierarchical management. It seems that my level is not enough. You are the chief and you are in charge. The task has changed to protect Robert's adopted daughter." After speaking, Natasha Romanoff put down the phone, took out SHIELD's ID, and walked to the policemen surrounding Robert's car. The prerequisite to protect Sky is to find Sky. Is there any way to find Sky faster than by asking the police woolen cloth? Walking to the police, Natasha Romanoff reported a list of unit names that made the police dizzy while looking at Robert lying in the car, and asked, "Did you see a little girl when you came?" The police returned the SHIELD ID to Natasha Romanoff and said, "Are you asking about the little girl Robert had just adopted? Someone saw her getting into the car of the RV weirdo." The RV weirdo. Natasha Romanoff was stunned, and then it occurred to him that the police was referring to Austin. Suddenly, Natasha Romanoff felt something was wrong and asked, "Can you be sure that Robert was not killed by the RV weir?" The policeman smiled and pointed to the camera at the entrance of the convenience store and said, "We are sure that Robert was not killed by the RV weirdo because it captured the murderer. As for Hank, it is still the same as Robert, who has a sharp neck. The knife cut off the artery and died. It is estimated that the same murderer did it, and some people saw the RV weirdo taking Sky around the town. He didn't have time to come back to kill, and there wouldn't be that guy who would stay in the town after killing someone. Austin didn't kill it, so it would be easier." Natasha Romanoff breathed a sigh of relief. At least from the information Fury gave, Austin knew that she could not control her abilities and chose to live alone on the rocky seashore, which gave her a good overall impression of Austin. It also shows that Fury has a good eye for people, and he can tell that Austin has kindness in his heart. In the name of SHIELD, Natasha Romanoff sent a video of Calvin killing Robert to Fury, and soon received a message from Fury. "Don't worry about the murderer, just hand Sky to the police, and the task of contacting Austin will continue." For this reason, Natasha Romanoff was a little puzzled. How did it feel that Fury actually knew the murderer? As for handing over the little girl to the police, what kind of operation is this? Isn't it a protection? Since you don't have to worry about the murderer, Natasha Romanoff naturally chose to hide in the dark, waiting for Li Feng to send Sky back, but before Natasha Romanoff could hide, she felt that someone was observing herself with a telescope in the distance. Natasha Romanoff looked up in the direction of the telescope without thinking about it. In the distance, Calvin, who was hiding in the distance waiting for Sky to return, saw Natasha Romanoff looking at him, calmly put down the binoculars in his hand, and turned to leave the town. Calvin just has a brain hole and is easy to get emotional. It doesn't mean that IQ is dropped. He understands that the wine-red woman who can find him all the way cannot afford it. If he chooses to go head-to-head with her like a brain damage, he will only suffer. Carrying his luggage, Calvin looked down at the bloodstains on his body, and thought silently, "I found my daughter anyway, just wait for a suitable opportunity to take Daisy with me. There is no need for my daughter to see the blood on my body." What to do if your baby girl is scared? There is a kind of traversal in the world. When the alarm clock rings, you are going to squint for a nap for 5 minutes. When you wake up, you find that you have traveled to the future 5 hours later. Li Feng encountered this situation now. When he woke up and looked out the window, he realized that he had squinted for half an hour and turned into the setting sun. At the same time, there was a strong smell of cake in the RV. Li Feng sighed and stretched, scratching his head and asking the little guy who was busy in front of the oven, "Sky, can't you see that you still have cooking skills at a young age?" Seeing Li Feng, who was sleeping like a dead pig, finally woke up, Sky said shyly, "Uncle, I'm a little hungry, so I made some cakes by myself." Sky felt speechless for Li Feng's behavior for half a day when she slept. If it weren't for the chaos of American law and order after dark, and she was not familiar with the small town environment, she didn't know if it would be dangerous to appear alone on a strange street. Especially when she saw several police cars passing by the RV with the alarm ula ula, she wanted to get out of the car and walk back to the convenience store to wait for Robert. Because Sky always changed his family, the young Sky believed that he had a wealth of experience in knowing people, and he judged that Li Feng was not bad. It just gave people an unreliable feeling. In addition, Sky was a little hungry and couldn't stand it. After all, snacks couldn't be eaten as a meal, so Sky decided to use Li Feng's flour to make some delicacies. As a result, Li Feng woke up as soon as the cake came out. Even if Li Feng said to treat this as her own home, it would be embarrassing to ask the owner of the RV to catch the current situation. After all, she didn't tell Li Feng to borrow tools to make some cakes. Li Feng licked his lips, walked to the oven with a scent tempted, and took the heat-proof gloves from Sky, and said, "Actually, you can wake me up, and I can take you to the restaurant for dinner." Li Feng, who took out the cake while talking, couldn't help taking a bite while smelling the scent of the cake, and said, "It tastes good, I didn't see it, you still have the potential of a cake maker." Seeing Li Feng, who was completely lifeless, Sky sighed in relief and said, "Uncle likes it, can you take me home now? Mr. Robert should worry about me." Li Feng, who was chewing on the cake, handed the cake to Sky, and when he walked to the driver's seat, he said, "My fault, I will take you home now." After a while, Li Feng returned to the Robert convenience store, and he understood that the bar next door was pulling the cordon. After all, he was still the policeman at the beginning. But the convenience store was still closed, which made Li Feng think maliciously, "Robert went to the hospital to see his wife and has not returned. Is it because the wife has not been rescued yet?" Sky also saw the convenience store where General Tai was still keeping the door, turned to look at Li Feng, and asked with his eyes, "What should I do?" Li Feng spread his hands and said, "First of all, I don't have a phone number or Robert's number. I can't contact Robert if I want to." Through the windshield, Li Feng looked up to the second floor of the convenience store and said, "Did Robert give you the key to your house?" Just when Sky shook his head and denied that he had the key, Natasha Romanoff took 3 police officers with SHIELD identity, twisted his waist and walked to the driver's window, knocked on the window and said, "You must be Austin." "Sir." Li Feng felt that Natasha Romanoff was familiar, but after thinking about it for a long time, he didn't know why he had seen this beauty. He asked in confusion, "Yes, you are." Natasha Romanoff glanced at Sky in the car and said, "I'm Robert's niece, Natasha Romanoff, I think he told you about me." Natasha Romanoff. Li Feng's pupils shrank, and he cursed in his heart, "Ma and widow sister. No wonder you are familiar with you, Robert, I misunderstood you, and so are you. Shields. What about niece? Widow's age is enough for your grandmother, so she fooled me with her niece." Li Feng smiled and said, "Yes, I know you, what's the matter?" It can only be said that Li Feng's expression is not properly concealed. When Li Feng's pupils contracted subconsciously, the experienced Natasha Romanoff had already judged that Li Feng knew himself. She was a little curious about Li Feng's source of intelligence. First, she dug out the Hydra hidden in the bureau, and then she knew her own existence. You must know that the more tasks she performs are espionage activities that few people know about, although there are many people in the circle. Everyone knew her name, but she was certain that Li Feng was not in the spy circle. Natasha Romanoff pointed to Sky and said, "I'm here to pick Sky. You were in the town this afternoon. Didn't you hear that Robert had an accident?" "Accident?" Li Feng scratched his eyebrows, glanced at the 3 policemen, thinking about how to stay away from the widow's sister, said in a joking tone, "Sorry, I overslept in the RV this afternoon and didn't hear any news." "What's wrong with Robert?" It's not like her wife didn't come back and scared him to have a heart attack. The husband and wife hiccuped and went to heaven. In addition to Sky's words, Li Feng also received a serious nod from Natasha Romanoff. Li Feng was stunned, staring and said, "You mean their husband and wife are really?" The policeman behind Natasha Romanoff coughed and signaled that there were minors at the scene, and some things should not be said in front of the children. Natasha Romanoff nodded clearly and said, "Mr. Austin, please open the door and let Sky come down." While speaking, Natasha Romanoff broke the door of the driving position and signaled Li Feng and Sky to get out of the driving position. Li Feng vaguely glanced at Natasha Romanoff's cuffs. In his impression, the widow sister seemed to like to hide some electric shock weapons in the cuffs. At the same time, he was not sure if Natasha Romanoff used Sky as an excuse to force him to get out of the car suddenly. Launch an attack. Considering that Fury was going to imprison him for interrogation 6 months ago, Li Feng has every reason to believe that Natasha Romanoff will attack him. Fortunately, Li Feng paid attention to driving safety. Because there was a famous child in the car, the door was locked from the beginning. Natasha Romanoff couldn't open the door of the driver's seat with the power of a normal person. Li Feng got up and motioned for Sky to get out of the side door of the RV, and turned to Natasha Romanoff and said, "Has the non-chief evolved into a marinated egg?" Natasha Romanoff, I know from Phil Coulson that you like to call Roar Fury as a non-chief, but what does the marinated egg mean, or if you look at Fury with a black face delicious? Opening the car door, Sky took the car accessories Li Feng gave her and walked out of the car. After looking at the policeman, he turned and said, "Uncle, can you adopt me? I feel like I'm going to change parents again." Before Li Feng could refuse, Natasha Romanoff squatted in front of Sky, looked at Li Feng and said, "Little Sky, Uncle Austin has no source of income and no fixed residence. Qualified to adopt you." The corner of Li Feng's eyes twitched slightly, and his belly slandered, "I said how poor I am. By the way, Lao Su's collection has brought out an invaluable treasure that is a sensation in the world." Natasha Romanoff touched Sky's head and turned to the policeman and said, "Thank you, help her find a good family." The 3 police officers nodded and motioned for Sky to follow them. When Sky left, Li Feng quickly closed the car door and sat in the driving position, ready to start the RV to leave, because he saw that Natasha Romanoff did not follow Sky, but looked at himself with interest. "Ma Dan, I know that Fury won't let me go so easily. This time, I will leave the United States directly to see how you find me." Just as Li Feng was about to step on the accelerator, he heard Natasha Romanoff stepping up and stepping on the car. Looking through the rearview mirror, Li Feng's mouth twitched and watched Natasha Romanoff clutching the top edge of the RV with both hands, and one fell onto the roof of the RV after turning over. Unless Natasha Romanoff rushes into the touring car, Li Feng is not going to make a move. After all, how can he mix in New York after he hurts Natasha Romanoff? How to get into Avengers, how to get infinite gems. Sighing, Li Feng slammed on the accelerator and shouted, "Widow sister, take you for a ride, do you want to go for a ride?" "Widow sister, do you mean Black Widow? You know how to call my sister, you know a lot." Natasha Romanoff drew the dagger from his calf and pierced it through the roof to fix himself, and shouted, "Austin, I have no ill will. I need to talk to you. That bitten egg didn't take me to the fore." Li Feng, who drove the RV to and fro to throw Natasha Romanoff off the RV, used mental strength to lock Natasha Romanoff's every move, while looking for few pedestrians suitable for opening. At the portal, he shouted, "How many years have you worked with him? I think you know more about the magnitude of his suspicion than I do, especially the kind that can't be cured by the world's top experts. It made me weak when I was young. Go back with you and save it." If a trained person runs away by car, he will subconsciously follow the G line, but has Li Feng trained? No, so the car he drove was often unexpected. For example, it was time to turn left on the road. Li Feng turned right and drove to the flower bed next to the road, or when he saw that the road was relatively wide, Li Shengzheng stepped on the accelerator and circled on the spot 3 lap. When Natasha Romanoff thought that Li Feng was still going to make a circle on the spot, Li Feng just kicked the accelerator to move on. Coupled with a sudden stop from time to time, Natasha Romanoff, who has many years of experience in the car, said, "I can't take it, it's so uncomfortable, I want to vomit." Seeing that Natasha Romanoff seemed to be stuck to the RV, the helpless Li Feng decided to do something ruthless, such as opening the portal to midair, and having a high-altitude bungee jumping without a safety rope. It must be very cool. Thinking of this, Li Feng stretched out his hand to open the portal, and shouted, "Niu, brother, I will show you the sunrise," so excited. Natasha Romanoff, who noticed Li Feng's gesture, hadn't understood the meaning of Li Feng's words, and suddenly saw a swirling orange-yellow light door in the distance, and in the middle of the light door was a faintly bright sky. Natasha Romanoff didn't want to try to travel through space inexplicably, even if she can now determine that the suspected wormhole device in the intelligence is simply Li Feng's ability. Because he was going to enter the portal, the RV was not crooked, but drove in a straight line. Natasha Romanoff jumped out of the RV decisively at this time and watched Li Feng drive through the light door and disappear in front of him. After a long time, Natasha Romanoff took out his phone and called Fury, and said, "Sir, do you have good news?" Li Feng caught it. Natasha Romanoff sorted out his messy clothes, and said, "This is bad news. The good news is that Li Feng doesn't have a wormhole device, but his power." Fury: "Well, at least you don't have to worry about wormholes." Passing through the portal, Li Feng in midair was excited to feel the free-rolling RV, and quickly opened the portal. A portal suddenly appeared in the uninhabited desert area of Kuna Province, Afghanistan. Back on the ground, Li Feng pushed the car door and walked out of the RV. He licked the corners of his mouth with his hands on his knees and licked the corners of his mouth. Li Feng grinned and said, "Cool, exciting, this is called bungee jumping." Although the desert is uninhabited and not suitable for tourism, it is precisely this kind of environment that is suitable for Li Feng to practice his spells. Li Feng secretly determined to become stronger as soon as possible. Besides occasionally driving back to the metropolis to have a good meal and relax, he devoted himself to the study of various dark magics. After more than half a year of pondering and practicing, Li Feng finally mastered a lot of low-end dark magic. As for the high-end, Li Feng said that he only dared to study and dare not practice. After all, the spells in Dabi's mouth have not been sorted out by Ancient One. The low-end spells can be judged whether there are traps based on Li Feng's current reserves of knowledge, but those high-end spells can't tell what traps are hidden. Early in the morning, Li Feng pinched his fingers and calculated, "Today's weather is clear and cloudless, it is a good day for crossing." By the way, I don't know if it was Li Feng's back or Afghanistan. Anyway, in half a year, Li Feng saw dark clouds in the sky and there are only a handful of days, and now Li Feng is thirsty for playing the portal. After taking a bath, I opened a portal to connect the file size of the bowl to the river, otherwise I really couldn't stay in this desert area where water is more expensive than gold. Before crossing, Li Feng must first hide the RV, otherwise the two worlds will go back and forth for a few months, and Li Feng's most valuable item left in the Marvel world, that is, the RV, what should I do if it is stolen? This is also Mordu's gift anyway, it symbolizes the passion of the two. After a long time, Li Feng, who was driving around in the desert, finally found a hidden cave in the hill. Parked the RV, and Li Feng placed a magic circle nearby to shield the mana fluctuations to prevent the holy place magician from being alarmed when the crossing door was opened, which would cause unnecessary trouble. When everything was ready, Li Feng took a deep breath and opened the crossing door. Li Feng, who was squeezed out of the rubber pipe like milk through the door, had his first impression of the world as cold, so cold that his whole body shivered subconsciously. Li Feng tightened his magician robe and observed the dim environment around him. With just a glance, Li Feng confessed to Mordor in his heart, "I said before that you have a character problem. When I crossed with you, I didn't come to a plague-ridden world. Is the back alley where rats crawled all over the street, and now I solemnly apologize to you. It's not that you have a character problem, but I have a problem. At least you can guarantee freedom after crossing with you. What about me, especially crossing the cold and damp cell? What the hell is this? I have the face of a prisoner, or am I destined to be hunted down? There is a bittern in the Marvel world who wants to imprison me, so this world is imprisoned directly." A black-lined Li Feng drew a magic long knife and slashed open the cell door. As soon as he walked out of the cell door, Li Feng saw a huge giant in the cell next door, squatting in a corner of the cell and shivering as if the sky was falling to death. Li Feng rolled his eyes around. Except for the dim and humid environment, this is a prison with no guards. He didn't understand what this amazingly tall buddy was afraid of. Isn't it afraid of the dark? Could this be that the legendary strong man has a girlish heart who is afraid of darkness? Out of curiosity about height, Li Feng silently thought of the scene where the two men drew their heights face to face. Probably I only reached the height of each other's chest, so in the eyes of the other party, I am just a little guy with a small bird and a person. Thinking of this, Li Feng shuddered suddenly, because the bird, in his mind nestled in the arms of the giant, it was him. Throwing the hellish fantasy picture out of his mind, Li Feng knocked on the door of the cell with a magic knife, motioned the giant man in the cell to look at him, and asked, "Dude, are you a giant or a dwarf?" Although Li Feng probably guessed that the other party was a giant, considering that the dwarf in the Marvel world was tall and big, he changed the country of dwarf to the country of giants abruptly. This had to make Li Feng have this question. The giant man shrank, looked at Li Feng with both fear and curiosity, and asked, "Are you from the Ministry of Magic?" "The secret room was not open to me. I don't want to stay in Azkaban and let me go." Quote. Perhaps it was excitement or fear. The giant man spoke a little faster, which caused Li Feng, who could only speak American English, to be stunned for a long time before he realized what the other person was saying in English. Ministry of Magic. Is it the government on the mysterious side of this world? Didn't you open the secret room or I opened it? Tell me these are useful. I am not a key member of the Ministry of Magic. Azkaban. This is a bit familiar, I seem to have heard it there. And this spoken language, why does it sound a little awkward? Li Feng scratched his head, pointed at his feet, looked at the bearded but somewhat familiar giant man, and asked, "Which country is this? Also, I think you are pretty stupid. What is your name? Speak it out and listen. Maybe I know you." It's not that Li Feng has never watched the Harry Potter series of movies, but it was all 800 years ago. It would be nice to have an impression of Azkaban. He wanted to hear the words of the giant and thought of it. Where? Li Feng hasn't had such a good memory yet. Until, the giant said angrily. "My name is Rupert Hagrid, you can call me Hagrid, sir, this is Azkaban, what are you doing in prison?" Quote. Hagrid looked at Li Feng's eyes with a little puzzlement, saying that Li Feng was a prisoner who was imprisoned in Azkaban, but the other party was wandering around the jail with a long knife and good clothes. Don't hear about any prisoner who can still go to jail with a weapon. It's not like visiting the prisoner. At least the other party didn't find the right person to chat with. Instead, he was chatting with the stranger himself. After hesitation, Hagrid asked, "Are you from the Ministry of Magic?" Hagrid. Li Feng stared at the giant man in front of him. He already knew where it was, Azkaban. Isn't it the magic prison built by the Ministry of Magic in the cold North Sea region in the world of Harry Potter? No wonder it's so cold. Think about what Harry's world has, countless magic, all kinds of magic potion alchemy items, the most important thing is the red-haired Ron, his father. Change to a flying car that can be invisible. If he learns to transform cars, Li Feng will change his RV magic when he returns to the Marvel world. By the way, he will expand the space in the car. For example, use the non-marking curse to change his locker to the size of 2 football fields. Li Feng roamed unscrupulously in the locker, and he was delighted to think about it. He chuckled. Li Feng touched his pocket with a little heart. "Ma Dan, the prerequisite for all of this is that I need to have Jin Jelong in my pocket." Li Feng asked with some trepidation, "Do you know Harry Potter? Does he go to school at Hogwarts?" Li Feng asked, just to figure out what time period it was in which Harry's story had developed. If Harry was not born yet, he turned his head and left Azkaban. After all, Azkaban has nothing worthy of his nostalgia. Seeing Hagrid nodded and said that he knew Harry Potter, and Harry was still a student, Li Feng only felt that he was in the hot summer. Suddenly, a refreshing energy penetrated from the Tianling guy, and the whole body was cold. It was so refreshing. Suddenly, Li Feng seemed to think of something. When he probed for the fat sheep in his mind, he looked at Hagrid suspiciously. "Azkaban. Isn't it a prison guarded by a Dementor? I don't remember Hagrid being imprisoned in Azkaban. What's the situation? This is not a fake Harry Potter world, is it? Hagrid, tell me how you were locked up here." Hagrid's personality is a bit silly, but it doesn't mean he is stupid. He doesn't even know who Li Feng is, so how dare he say anything about whether Hogwarts can continue to operate? Seeing Hagrid covering his mouth and reluctant to say anything, Li Feng shrugged and continued to look for the fat sheep that could provide him with a lot of Jinjulong. As for Hagrid, he didn't talk. He didn't. If you want to get involved in Hogwarts to learn magic, it is estimated that Hagrid will not meet again in the future. And how did he get into school like an adult now? Aren't you afraid that Dumbledore would hang him at the school gate as a Death Eater? There are ways to learn magic, such as spending money to hire a private professor, which is more efficient than a professor teaching a group of children. After turning around in the cell for most of the time, Li Feng finally found the fat sheep in his mind. Li Feng stood in front of a cell, feeling a little uneasy, thinking that if he traveled through the wrong time and didn't meet the person he wanted to find, Jinjulong could say goodbye to himself, and he would have to spend more at that time. Thinking of another way to make some money, wouldn't this waste his precious time? Looking at the thin man with dull eyes and dirty hair and clothes, Li Feng said, "Hello, are you serious, Black? I know where Peter is. Do you want revenge? If you want to, give 1/3 of it. I will hand over Dwarf Star to you." After thinking about it, Li Feng was not sure that he could catch Peter Pettigrew alive. After all, that guy was too able to escape. He could only say that the escape attribute of the mouse was filled by him. Li Feng added, "Or 1/4 of the family property, I bring the dead little Star Peter to you." Squatting in the corner of the prison, Black, who was suspected of Sirius, his dull eyes became bloodthirsty and energetic after hearing Li Feng's words, and a madness spread gradually on his face. Black rushed to the prison door, trying to grab Li Feng by the collar, but Li Feng had exorcised somehow, so how could he be caught so easily? Seeing that Li Feng was caught, Black shouted, "Let me go out, I will kill Dwarf Star myself, he is mine, no one can kill him." Hearing Blake admitting that he is serious, Li Feng sighed with relief. He was worried that he had traveled too late in time, and his worries that the rich man Blake would escape from Azkaban also disappeared, because he knew that he had traveled to the right time at the right time. Location: as long as you take Blake out of Azkaban, I believe Blake will pay him a large sum of Jinjulong, if you are telling the other party where the Pettigrew is, hee. Diagon Alley, I'm here. As the prison of the wizarding world, Azkaban has no human rights for the prisoners here. Not to mention having a newspaper for entertainment, and even the prison has no time for public release. The only space for activities is his prison. As for peace chat with inmates, Azkaban offers a single suite, you deserve it. Perhaps it was because of being detained for too long. Blake, who hadn't communicated with others for a long time, seemed to have a lot to say. He finally met Li Feng, who was willing to listen to his complaints. His mouth was like a faucet that couldn't be shut off. He said, "No, stop." I saw the scrawny Blake sitting on the ground and sneered. The mysterious human rights were overwhelming and upset the magical world. It was just because of a prophecy that he was about to kill Harry, who was still in swaddling clothes. Originally Harry's father, James Bow. I specially prepared a magic to hide the house so as to avoid the mysterious man's pursuit, but this magical magic requires a secret person. As long as the secret person does not reveal Potter's home, the mysterious man will not find Harry in his life. Quote, "It's a pity that we believed in the wrong person and made the traitor, Dwarf Star, a secret, which led to the mysterious man not only finding Harry's home, but also killing Harry's parents, if it wasn't for Harry's mother, Lily Potter, who used her life to protect Harry and kill him. Mysterious man, Harry now. I only learned after the Harry family was killed that all of this was caused by Pettigrew's betrayal of us to seek refuge with a mysterious person, so I went to find him for revenge alone, but I didn't expect him to blow up half a street with a magic to escape, and I, the Auror who was rushed here, was arrested on the spot. In order to calm the time, the Ministry of Magic detained me in Azkaban without trial. I thought I would never hear the name of Little Dwarf in my life. I thought how good friends we were at the beginning and stayed inseparable all day long. I didn't expect that he would betray us. I was really blind at the beginning. Unexpectedly, after spending 12 years in Azkaban, I suddenly heard news about him," Black said with a twisted face and bloodthirsty eyes. "It's great. I let him escape last time. This time, I will definitely do it myself. Kill him." When Li Feng, who was quietly standing his ears in the audience, knew that Blake, who was backing the Dwarf Star, had been in Azkaban for 12 years, he thought silently, in other words, Harry is 12 years old and is 2 years old from Hogwarts. Student. Scratching his head, Li Feng recalled Harry's plot. I won't say the first is the Philosopher's Stone. Time has passed. I was talking about the Broken Stone and it's no match for me, whether it's Dumbledore or Nicole LeMay. Can easily slap me. Now is the time for the second basilisk, as if I am not good for it nor can I fight it, unless the blind basilisk, after all, the eyes are too disgusting, stare at everyone die. Mr. Black, it's the same sentence. As long as you pay me, I will help you open the prison door and let you out, and take you back to London safely. Definitely, if you pay more, I will tell you, little dwarf. It's not impossible to negotiate anywhere. How? I definitely want to leave here, but... Blake looked out the window with interest to estimate the time, then pointed to the direction of the prison entrance and said, "It's time for dinner. If you can resist the Dementors, we are talking about compensation." Dementor. Li Feng smiled. The Dementor is the best guardian for Azkaban, but for me, it's just a guinea pig lying on the test bench. Turning his head to think about it, Li Feng added, "It should be said that all creatures with distorted minds will behave like pets in front of me." As soon as Li Feng's words fell, Black seemed to feel something, curled up on the ground and shivered. As for Li Feng, he felt the chill that accompanied the Dementor before he saw the Dementor appear. I have to say that if the Dementor can control his own desires, he must rely on his own coldness in the hot summer. Will be popular. At the same time, Li Feng also heard someone talking. No, to be precise, there was an undead speaking, because the language Li Feng heard was the undead language he only used when talking to a corpse. Li Feng, who had just taken out a wooden box, followed the voice of the undead words and looked towards the prison entrance. He saw two Dementors with ragged cloaks floating in the air, all of them rotting in water, and Li Feng listened. The undead words that arrived were from one of the Dementors. Although the Dementors can't see Li Feng without eyes, they can rely on smell and emotion to make sure that they are standing in front of a prisoner. Although the two Dementors are a little curious about why a prisoner they don't know came to the prison, they are good children who are not picky eaters. As long as the people staying in Azkaban are their food, thinking of this, a Dementor who was starving in Li Feng's eyes rushed towards him while still muttering, "Food." Li Feng, who opened his Dharma eye, looked at the Dementor curiously, and said to Black with his lips, "Dementors are talking about the undead, are they a kind of undead creatures? Dude, do you have the Encyclopedia of Undead Encyclopedias? Help me find out what species this is." After finishing speaking, Li Feng murmured silently in his heart, "And your spirit body, I don't know how to describe it well, saying that the spirit body is broken into pieces, and it is not accurate to put it back with glue. It's so messy, no wonder you guys. The brain is sick." Seeing a Dementor rushing towards him, Li Feng mobilized his mana and asked Blake with a smile, "I heard that you can only prevent the Dementors from attacking, but cannot kill them." While talking, a Dementor stretched out its crusted palm and floated to Li Feng's side, preparing to have a full meal, but before the Dementor touched Li Feng's spell-containing palm slapped on the Dementor. In Blake's incredible eyes, the Dementor who was photographed by Li Feng suddenly stayed there motionless. Li Feng's eyes were full of disdain. He rubbed his cold palm because he was too close to the Dementor, and muttered silently, "I can't shoot the spirit body of a living person for the time being, but you are such a piecemeal, can't I make a spirit body like that?" The other Dementor seemed to be surprised that someone could kill his companions tenderly, but he had only a little brain capacity to think about what to do, and was driven away by the desire to smoke, and rushed towards Li Feng. Now that the spirit spell has been experimented, Li Feng definitely plans to use another method to kill the Dementor, not only experimenting with the spell on Thea Solomon's key, but also letting Black know that he is not a fuel-efficient lamp. Before the Dementor approached, Li Feng stretched out his finger to the opponent, spit out gently, "Purification." Blake stared blankly at Li Feng's fingertips shooting a white light, lacing precisely on the Dementor, and the Dementor who had tortured him for 12 years was like a snowman put into a boiling oil pan, and was instantly corroded by the white light into slag. Li Feng retracted his finger and put it to his mouth, blowing lightly towards his fingertips as if a cowboy was shooting a prey. He turned his head and said to the dumbfounded Black, "I have always had a question. The Dementors can feel the other party. The inner pain and sorrow, etc., the more pain they like, the more they like it, but the problem is that they clearly smell pain, and smoking is indeed happiness and courage. What's wrong with this? Isn't it supposed to feel pain and sorrow, sucking pain and sadness? Or feel happy, sucking happiness. In case someone feels that he is a tragic life, there is only pain in his heart, and the Dementor also feels his pain, but can't breathe after smoking for a long time. What should I do if I am happy? Will the Dementor be autistic? Black only felt that his brain hurts. His attention was focused on the Dementor who was slapped by Li Feng's palm. He didn't pay attention to what Li Feng was saying. He only knew the Dementor who was still staying in place, and like those who have been sucked by the Dementor's kiss with the Dementor's kiss, their souls are lost, only the brain and heart are still working, but they no longer have self-awareness, no memories, and there is no hope of recovery, just an empty body. This is more terrifying than killing the Dementor. Black realized that if Li Feng wanted, he could make hundreds of people who had been kissed by the Dementor's kiss. If this magic was spreading going out, especially after being known by a mysterious person, can cause even greater disasters. Li Feng saw something in Blake's horrified eyes, and said with a smile, "It's not as horrible as you think, and this spell is also effective for Dementors with defective spirits. It's like I shot your spirits out of the flesh, but wouldn't you return to the flesh by yourself?" Pointing to the stupefied Dementor, Li Feng continued, "Simply put, the Dementor's spirit body is like a road idiot. Once he leaves the body, he doesn't know the way back to the body. Maybe he only has it. The brain capacity doesn't understand that he actually has no physical body anymore." Spirit body. What is that? Black pointed to the prison entrance and said, "Does your spell kill Dementors one by one, or do they come in pieces?" Azkaban is regarded as a lair by Dementors. The number of ghosts is staggering. Li Feng overturned the wooden box in his hand and walked around the dazed Dementor and said, "Spirit body, I can't explain it for a while, or wait for us to leave. I will teach you, as long as you pay me a sum as for the reward for learning spiritual spells. As for the large number of Dementors, you will know later." Li Feng touched his chin, turned his head to look at Blake, and said, "What do you think of me raising a Dementor as a pet? It's very popular when shopping." Seeing that there is hope of being released from prison, and there is also a chance to stab the little dwarf, Blake's mood is obviously better, and he can cast his eyes to Li Feng and say, "It's pretty cool. I guess the entire magical world would dare to think so. Aren't you afraid they will bite the Lord someday? How easy it is to not give them a chance to eat the master." Feeling the air keep cooling down, Li Feng glanced at the frost that quickly formed on the ground. He understood that it was a large number of Dementors who had noticed the death of their companions and were ready to come to check, or to avenge their companions. Li Feng licked his lips, and quickly opened the mirror space when several Dementors appeared in front of him, wrapped the several Dementors in the mirror space, then opened the wooden box with a grin, and spoke to the Dementors with undead words. Guai said, "Surrender or die." "Maiden, I wanted to say this to magical creatures, but my strength was too low before. In addition to being hanged or beaten, I finally met the magical creatures that I restrained. I feel so sorry to not say this." In the mirrored space, several Dementors opened the wooden box in Li Feng's hand, and they were forced to one corner by the deadly energy emitted by the pseudo-angel's feathers, shivering and wailing in pain that only Li Feng could hear. It wasn't until Li Feng felt that these Dementors might actually belch after being exposed to the false angel feathers for a while. Li Feng closed the wooden box and said, "Now, the one who chooses to surrender kneels on the ground and sign a slave contract with me, thinking if you die, just say, I will perfect you." Eating the weak and eating the weak is the basic law of nature. To survive or die, the Dementor definitely chooses to survive, just like the Dementor will take refuge in mysterious people in the future. Li Feng didn't know how the mysterious man subdued the Dementors, but it was nothing more than a threat of force or temptation. Now, Li Feng just demonstrated his ability to kill the Dementors, and the Dementors bowed their heads and waited for Li Feng. Carve out the contract. Conquering the Dementors in the mirror space, Li Feng couldn't wait to open the portal and commanded in undead words, "Now, catch me all those Dementors who have not signed the slave contract." The Dementor who became a slave nodded slightly and said in undead language, "Yes, master." After that, these Dementors returned to the real world through the portal, and what Li Feng had to do was to wait in the mirror space for his new servants to capture the Dementors into the mirror space. At the beginning, Li Feng was afraid that his servants were too few. The Dementors who were caught would resist after understanding what fate was about to face. For safety reasons, Li Feng still maintained a mirror space, waiting for a few willed Dementors to be thrown away. After entering the mirror space, close the portal to prevent escaping, take out the wooden box and threaten it before conquering. However, as Azkaban's Dementors continue to become Li Feng's servants, the number of Dementors traveling between reality and the mirror space is rapidly increasing like a snowball. In the end, the wild Dementors were caught too much and too quickly, and Li Feng simply walked out of the mirror space and stood in front of Black, letting him see how he conquered the Dementors. It wasn't until the sky started to lighten that Li Feng completely conquered the last Dementor. Black, who was squatting in the cell, looked at a slightly larger Dementor standing behind Li Feng like a baby, and said, "Originally I wanted to leave Azkaban, the Ministry of Magic. Well, why do you want me? Now it's all right. I guess I walked blatantly on the street and no one paid attention to me, because the Ministry of Magic's attention is all on you. I just want to say, buddy, you are very capable of making trouble." Blake stretched out a dry, skinny hand, motioned to shake hands with Li Feng, and said, "Although you know my name, I don't know yet. Your name is not fair." After shaking hands, Li Feng signaled Blake to retreat, opening the cell door and saying, "Austin, just call me Austin." Walking out of the cell, Blake took a deep breath of freedom, and said, "How are you going to arrange these Dementors? I have to remind you that Dementors are in the darkest and dirtiest places. They like corruption and despair. The peace, hope and happiness in the air around them are all sucked up. Too close to a Dementor, any good feelings and any happy memories of you will be sucked away by it." Blake looked up and down at Li Feng, and continued, "Although I don't know how you can ignore the Dementor by your side, but I think your family may not be able to bear a Dementor by your side." "Ignore? You look up to me. I am not ignoring it, but I am desperately trying to stabilize the spirit body. As long as the spirit body is stable enough, the Dementor can't find my emotions. What else can I talk about sucking my happiness? Try one, I will kill him in minutes. But it's really uncomfortable to be with the Dementors around me. Ma Dan, I just wanted to subdue the Dementors before, but didn't think about how to arrange them." Li Feng scratched his head awkwardly, turned around and ordered the leader of the Dementor, that is, the guy behind Li Feng who was slightly larger than the normal Dementor, and said, "You stay here and continue to be your guards. Before my order, you still follow the instructions of the Ministry of Magic. For the Dementors to stay away from Azkaban, this is their home and restaurant. After all, they will be hungry after leaving Azkaban." The Dementor leader nodded slightly. Said, "Yes, Master." Azkaban is now Li Feng's sphere of influence, coupled with the cold and humid environment. The most important thing is that Big Sheep has gotten his hands, and Li Feng can't think of a reason for staying in Azkaban. Under the guidance of the Dementor, Li Feng and Blake walked out of Azkaban and stood on a rock. For a long time, Li Feng complained about Azkaban's built bunker, and at the same time said to Black, who was constantly yelling towards the sea, "Are you finished with venting? We will leave after we vent." Black took a deep breath, exhaled slowly, turned his head and said, "The taste of freedom." After speaking, Blake looked around for something and said, "How do we leave? Swim, or the door key? By the way, I have always wondered how you appeared in Azkaban. Also, I noticed that you were casting a spell. I didn't use a magic wand, but I can feel that your physical magic is actually not much." Li Feng thinks that Black may not have been chatting with him for many years, and he has been suffocated. Now he has finally found himself to chat, and he is ready to say all the words he has held in Azkaban for 12 years. Pulling out his ears, Li Feng motioned to Black to shut up and asked, "Which way is London?" Blake was stunned. After pointing the direction, he asked curiously, "Why are you asking the direction?" As soon as Blake's voice fell, Li Feng had already opened a portal. Although Harry Potter's world is also on the Earth, Li Feng said that he has never been to the UK, let alone where London is. In addition, Li Feng doesn't even know what London's iconic buildings look like, and the portal can open to London. That's strange. So now, Li Feng chose the most exciting method of transmission and opened the portal to the sky along his gaze. When the two of them became free fall in the air, Li Feng looked into the distance and opened the portal again, which was like falling into a bottomless pit. The North Sea is some distance away from London. Li Feng's mana cannot guarantee that they can feel London in one day, so Li Feng had to open the portal to a nearby island before he was about to run out of mana, ready to take a rest. At night, the two of them sat around the campfire, heating and grilling sea fish. I don't know how Azkaban's food was. Anyway, Li Feng felt that Blake was starving. He not only robbed him of his half-baked fish, but also ate all the fish scales clean. As a last resort, Li Feng could only go back to the beach to catch some marine fish again. When Li Feng cleaned the marine fish and inserted it by the campfire, he inadvertently saw Blake with green eyes staring at the fish in his hand, frightening Li Feng. Almost throwing the fish on Black's face. Rolling his eyes at Blake, Li Feng said with a look of fascination, "Man, this is my fish, if you want to eat it, a golden gelong." The corner of Blake's eyes twitched slightly, and he said angrily, "Don't think that I have been in Azkaban for 12 years and I don't know the current prices. A golden gelong can buy a basket of marine fish. How much money do you need? Tell me about money. Tell me about money whenever you want." Li Feng spread his hands and said bitterly, "I am poor. People like you who were born in a rich family will not understand the suffering of poor people like us. Let me tell you this, except for the air roar sucks. Buy, you need money to buy the rest." Blake looked at Li Feng speechlessly. Shan Shan said, "No, I understand. I don't know where you know my past, but you probably don't know that I was penniless during the time I was removed from the Black family. When he was a minor, he could still live in his friend James's house. When he was an adult, he could only remodel the locomotive to eat. Oh, it's the kind of locomotive that can fly. After all, not everyone likes to fly all over the sky on a broom. The rich necromancer pursues his own personality, so in general, I can still support myself by craftsmanship." Hearing Blake's words, Li Feng only felt that his eyes lit up. It was really a dream to find her thousands of times, but the person was living opposite. Isn't what he lacks is the technology to transform the RV. Since Blake has this skill, why does he bother to find Ron his father? This is not going to be near and far. Li Feng let himself show the most kind smile, and said, "You want to eat fish, it's simple, as long as you teach me how to modify the locomotive, let alone eat such a small fish, I will catch a whale and honor you." Quote. Blake cast his eyes at Li Feng, and then turned his eyes to the cooked sea fish. Li Feng said that he understood in seconds, and respectfully offered the sea fish with both hands. After receiving the grilled fish, Blake blew the grilled fish so as not to burn his mouth, and said, "There are a lot of things involved in it. You can't learn it in a short while, and it's hard to learn if you don't just say it." Blake looked at Li Feng up and down, and said quietly, "Do you have a certificate? If I guess you're not wrong, you don't have a certificate. After all, you don't even have a wand to represent your identity. So we'd better find a way to get a legal certificate when we get back to London. So that you can buy parts in Diagon Alley. Documents. What department should my certificate be issued by? Traversers Association." Li Feng shrugged and said that he was a shady household and he didn't have any documents. "In addition, I don't know when the Ministry of Magic will find out that I have escaped from Azkaban, so we'd better get the ID before the Ministry of Magic issues a wanted, otherwise the fake ID will inform the Ministry of Magic when they help us. I got both the commission for false certification and the bounty from the Ministry of Magic." Li Feng nodded, indicating that he understood. That he immediately sat cross-legged by the campfire and started meditating to restore mana. Black was stunned by Li Feng's behavior. After all, in his impression, in addition to the use of potions to speed up the recovery of magic power, it can only be recovered naturally by time. Black with a big question mark on his forehead thought depressed, "What have I missed during my 12 years in Azkaban?" The next morning, when the sun was shining on the Thames, Li Feng stood by the river with a messy haircut, and with a ruined look, he slumped his arm on the tattered Black's shoulder, panting and saying, "It's finally over, no it's easy." Blake, who was shivering by the high-altitude wind, rolled his eyes on his shoulders, with a deeply emotional expression, raised his hands and said, "It's not easy, I swear that I will never cross your weird teleportation in my life. Door, look at my hands, I feel that my hands have been dried by the high winds. By the way, your portal can only be opened where you can see." Thoughtful Li Feng shrugged his shoulders, believing that Black had said to the portal and said, "Isn't this exciting? It's much more fun than modifying a flying locomotive." Blake rolled his eyes, looked at the few passers-by on the street, and said, "I guess you don't have any Muggle-used coins on your poor ghost. I think I'd better walk home and get warm by the way." Li Feng turned out his pockets and muttered, "It seems that you are rich now, and you are not as clean as I am. I am saying that with our current dress, we just need to squat to the side of the road." Someone will give us some change for the subway. It's a pity that Li Feng responded with a pair of sharp eyes. Black lowered his voice, bit the corner of his mouth and said sharply, I would rather wash the dishes to earn the fare than you squat on the side of the road and beg like you. After that, Blake was not paying attention to Li Feng, and walked in the direction of his own home. Cut. Li Feng, who followed Blake, whispered contemptuously, are you the pride of aristocrats? Blake's home was at number 12 Mowgli Square, some distance away from where Li Feng and Li Feng were seated. When Li Feng felt that his lower body was about to break and he needed to call an ambulance, the two went to Blake's door. Standing in the middle of number 11 and number 13 in Mowgli Square, Black stomped slightly. Li Feng curiously watched the houses side by side in front of him suddenly move to both sides, like a huge amounts of sliding stone door, until the hidden mob was revealed. House number 12 in the square. And all of this, the people living in the isolated house have no feeling, the same, the few streets on the street, the pedestrians are also unaware of all this. Blake looked back at Li Feng and motioned for Li Feng to follow. I don't know how long Blake hasn't returned home. Li Feng, who just walked into the door, covered his mouth and said, Man, is this a house or a garbage dump? Is there a place for the fish? Black also covered his mouth and nose, enduring the musty smell that could smoke dead man, frowning and said, This is my parents' house. I haven't come back since I was driven out of the family, but now there is only one member of my family. Naturally it belongs to me, but I remember that there is still a house elf cleaning in the house. Blake hadn't finished speaking. A 1 meter tall, with big bat ears, and a weird pointy nose that was about to drop to his upper lip, a shabby house elf suddenly appeared in front of them and said, The greedy thief is here again. The Black family, there are no more valuables here. Halfway through the conversation, the house elf seemed to see Black, and said with some excitement, Sirius, who betrayed the bloodline, is back. Li Feng stabbed Black quietly, and said, What's wrong with this guy? I'm very excited when I see you on the surface, but what makes me think I dislike you? Ignoring Li Feng's words, Black frowned and lowered his head and asked, Creature, you said there were many thieves here. Where is the secret basement of the family? Has it been visited by thieves? Little Master. Creature lowered his head humbly and replied, The basement is protected by magic, and outsiders cannot enter. Then Creature said as if talking to himself, Sirius came back with Mudblood. I want to tell the mistress. After speaking, Creature turned and left on his own. Li Feng scratched his head and asked in a low voice, Your elf is really a personality, a proper neurotic elf. Creature was like this when I was a kid. He always made me feel bad instantly. Black with a little helpless face motioned to Li Feng to follow behind him, and said, Under normal circumstances, no family would take all the property. Put it at Gringotts Bank. Even if the goblins who manage Gringotts blow the bank's security to the dragon's collective siege, they will not be able to enter the bank's treasury. You must know that the group of goblins is more greedy than you think, so each family will secretly build the secret room where Jinjalong or treasures are stored. Now come with me to get your reward. As soon as they walked into a dilapidated room, Black and Li Feng suddenly heard the voice of a woman cursing frantically outside the door. Before Li Feng asked, Black suddenly remembered something, grabbed a tablecloth and turned to leave. After a while, the woman's voice was heard. Disappeared instantly. In the room, Li Feng looked at the Black family genealogy hanging on the surrounding walls with great interest. Li Feng remembers that Hogwarts can recruit so few new students every year. If the number of new students exceeds 100 in any given year, Dumbledore can do more. Fireworks celebrated last day. This also shows from the side that the number of necromancers in the entire United Kingdom is pitiful, and there are many necromancers like Black's parents who firmly support the theory of descent. In order to ensure the purity of the necromancer bloodline, these people are basically married, which leads to most necromancers. Families are actually relatives. Anyway, Li Feng looked at the genealogy on the wall and felt very messy and interesting. He secretly thought that one day Blake would meet a baby who had not been weaned, and when he chatted with the baby's parents, everyone opened the genealogy and took a look. This baby is Black's second uncle, so funny. Definitely, Li Feng also noticed the subtle magical fluctuations in the genealogy. After a while, Black, who returned to the room with an oil lamp, stood in front of the genealogy list, bit his fingertips and gently smeared the names of the ancestors of the Black family. On the wall, the letters that dazzled Li Feng quickly formed an arch. As Blake pushed open the arch, a downward staircase appeared in front of Li Feng. Blake handed the oil lamp to Li Feng and said, "Don't worry, there are no traps on the stairs leading to the basement. The Jin Zhilong you want is in it. You can take it out depending on whether your pocket is big enough." Li Feng took the oil lamp, the corner of his mouth was slightly tilted and said, "What if I take it all out?" Blake shrugged and said, "Take it all. I don't care about the money." "I hope you won't regret saying this," Li Feng said as he walked into the arch and stood on the steps. "Can you give me the food? I'm exhausted in a hurry these days." Blake, who had no excuse to leave, grinned and said, "Definitely, but I have to close the arch first to prevent sudden intrusions, such as the thief in Creature's mouth." After speaking, Blake gently brushed the arches, and Li Feng, who was standing on the steps smiling, looked at the arches that disappeared behind him. His expression gradually solidified and converged. Touching his chin, Li Feng showed a disdainful expression and said to himself, "If I remember correctly, you staying in Azkaban in the original book, when you saw Pettigrew appearing as a Hogwarts student pet, in order to protect Harry, but desperate to escape from Azkaban, you can see how much you hate Pettigrew and how worried you are for Harry. And in the past few days with me, you seem to have forgotten to ask about the whereabouts of the little dwarf, and you are only curious about the strange spells I cast but don't ask. Do you not believe that I know the whereabouts of the little dwarf, or do you not trust me? Do I have another plan to take you away from Azkaban? It's a pity, I'm really only interested in your Jin Zhilong. I'm talking, do you really think that the portal can only be opened as far as you can see? Stupid, when you called for support, I found that I disappeared in the basement. My expression must be wonderful." After a while, Li Feng walked to the basement along the dusty wooden stairs. Said it as the basement, but the area is almost the same as the small square, enough for hundreds of aunts to line up in neat lines to dance the square here. Moreover, there are not only various compartments around the square, but also targets for practicing spells. Li Feng casually pushed open a compartment door, and saw a few shelves erected in the compartment with various magical items on them. With Li Feng's current knowledge, he couldn't determine whether there was any danger in picking up these items. He glanced at it, then he pushed the door of the compartment next door straight. Compared with magic items, the books on the shelves in this compartment caused Li Feng to drool with a serious lack of magic knowledge. In the end, Li Feng, who could not stand the temptation, drew out a long knife and stabbed the books. For a long time, Li Feng, who did not expect the various traps to appear, simply picked up a book with a long knife, took out the compartment and placed it on the ground. After thinking about it, Li Feng opened the mirror space and opened the page with the long knife. At a glance, Li Feng felt that his brain was buzzing, not because this book has magic traps, but, this is the United Kingdom. Although American language and text are born out of English, they can communicate between spoken languages, but many of them describe the text. In fact, it is different. If it is an ordinary book, Li Feng can still bite the bullet and read it, but this is a book that records magic knowledge. A misunderstanding of a word can kill people. Thinking of this, Li Feng felt so heartbroken. This made his original plan to buy a large number of magic books in Diagon Alley aborted. He couldn't even understand the text. How could he learn and find reaction software? This is the magical world, and the understanding of the same object in the Duni world is completely different. It is like the life and death water of the magic world, and the effect is the same as the Duni sleep medicine. But the question is which translation software translates the sleep medicine into the life and death water. Li Feng twitched his mouth and picked the books back to the shelf with a long knife. Now, he only asked for a special prop in Diagon Alley that could translate these words into American words that he was familiar with. Definitely, it would be better to translate them into Chinese characters. After all, Li Feng more familiar with the understanding of Chinese characters. Pushing open the compartment doors one by one, Li Feng finally found piles of Jin Zhilong, grabbed a handful of casual pockets, until he could no longer fit them in his pockets. Li Feng reluctantly opened the last compartment door. In the last compartment, a solitary experiment table is placed with various screwdrivers and drills of different file sizes. The difference from other compartments is that this experiment table is relatively clean. Obviously, this is a room that people use all year round. Walking into the compartment, Li Feng looked curiously at a locket fixed on the experimental table. With the dim light of the oil lamp, Li Feng saw a large snake in the shape of ants, carved on the shell of the locket. With the deepening of spiritual magic skills, Li Feng had a strange feeling for the locket, and he felt that the thing seemed to have life. After thinking about it, Li Feng opened his Dharma eye, and looked down at the locket, only to see the spirit body present in the locket that surprised Li Feng. From the perspective of the spirit body, there is indeed a distorted and chaotic soul in the locket, but this spirit body has no color, but black and white. This shows that the soul in the locket is undead, but the soul of the undead is not. When death god drags into the underworld, it will slowly dissipate in the air. Moreover, Li Feng also saw that there is a kind of magic on the locket to protect the soul in it, so that he can safely hide in the locket. The most important thing is that Li Feng also sees that this soul is alive, indicating that the soul is alive. People are not real dead souls. Based on his understanding of the spirit body and the plot of Harry's world, Li Feng immediately thought that the locket was one of the mysterious people's Horcruxes, the locket of the Salazar Slytherin family. To be honest, when Li Feng first watched the movie, he felt that the mysterious person transformed himself into a snake face that is not like a human or a ghost. He felt that the other party's brain was definitely sick. Is it worth it if power is right? Does that thing bring something to death when it comes to life? Is it useful? The magician must either achieve immortality by his strength, or he must hang his portrait on the wall for people to remember within 1,000 years after his death. With a grin, Li Feng picked up the locket with a long knife. Even if you look at the movie, everyone dared to hold the locket in hand. It seems that there is no harm except wearing the locket for a long time and being bewitched by the remnant soul of the mysterious person in the box. But that is a movie. This is the real world. Besides, the ghost knows what magic the mysterious person is still carving on the locket to protect it. What if Li Feng doesn't hold it still and takes it off? He wants to live a few more years. Taking out a scroll and the wooden box with fake angel feathers, Li Feng was a little tangled. If you wrap the locket with a scroll, Li Feng doesn't worry about being tempted by the locket. After all, he is a magician who has learned seduction spells from the devil. If it weren't for Li Feng's mana that is inferior to a mysterious person in terms of purity and quantity, he could not decide who is seduced. Li Feng's only concern was whether he would accidentally trigger the unknown magic on the locket with him. It is interesting to put the locket in the wooden box. The most basic function of the wooden box is to protect the energy of the fake angel feathers from leaking. Therefore, the wooden box is still trustworthy from the perspective of airtightness. Put the box in the wooden box, and the temptation is naturally isolated. This is like a mysterious person being locked into a small black room by Li Feng. As for the magic on the locket, definitely will also be locked into the small black room. The only trouble is that the fake angel feather cannot be put together with the locket. This thing is a big killer for all soul-distorting creatures. Once the two are put together, the soul in the locket must be faked angel feather kill. But when the fake angel feather leaves the wooden box, the energy on the feathers will continue to dissipate, eventually turning the fake angel feather into an ordinary goose feather. This is something Li Feng does not want to see. He also wants to use this feather to restrain the devil kind of creatures, in order to blackmail spells from the devil's mouth. Although Li Feng did not intend to participate in Harry's plot, this does not prevent Li Feng from imagining a deal with Dumbledore. At the cost of surrendering the locket, Dumbledore can teach himself magic or a magic that he covets. Prop time converter. After thinking about it for a long time, Li Feng was still reluctant to consume the energy of the pseudo-angel feathers at the expense of saving a locket that was not used much except for trading. Wrap the locket carefully with a scroll and put it in his pocket. Li Feng stretched out his hand to open the portal. At this time, Li Feng was very thankful that Black chose to use his feet to measure the distance from the Thames to Grimmauld Place. This gave Li Feng enough time to remember the environment along the way, so that he could open the portal and leave the secret basement of the Black family. Li Feng, wearing a windbreaker and a long knife, suddenly stepped from the portal to the street, scared the pedestrians around him, and immediately, Li Feng said to the bewildered pedestrian, "I am a street magician, I hope I will become alive." The magic didn't scare you. After speaking, Li Feng bowed to the surroundings and apologized and left the crowd with a depressed look. The reason why Li Feng is depressed is because he forgot to ask Black where Diagon Alley is. When he first arrived, He only knew that the broken axe bar can lead to Diagon Alley, but he didn't know where the broken axe bar was. What happened to him? Go to Diagon Alley. Li Feng, who only had necromancer coins in his pocket, squatted on the side of the road hungry, opened his Dharma eyes to check the spirit bodies of passing pedestrians from time to time, and prayed in his heart that a necromancer specific to the spirit body would pass in front of him, so that he could inquire about Diagon Alley. How to go? Until the sky was completely dark, Li Feng, still dreaming of finding necromancer, suddenly saw an afterimage galloping past his eyes. Rip the grass. What was the thing that went by just now? The startled Li Feng got up and looked at the afterimage, and when the afterimage was about to disappear from his sight, he realized that it was a 3-story bus. A night bus that can only be seen by a person with magical power in his body. Knowing what he saw, Li Feng stretched out his hand and opened the portal to the front of the bus with joy. He couldn't help but vomit. This is the speed that the bus should have. This is simply the plane flying at a low altitude. Crossing the portal, Li Feng beckoned to stop at the speeding bus. Unfortunately, the rule of the night bus is that he will only come when necromancer points his wand to the side of the road. What about Li Feng? Where can I find a magic wand? Therefore, the Cavalier's bus just didn't see Li Feng, and roared past by Li Feng's side. On the Cavalier's bus, the driver seemed to glance at Li Feng, turned his head and said to the conductor, "I seem to see someone beckoning to us just now." The conductor said indifferently, "Did you see his wand in his hand?" The driver, who saw Li Feng again appearing on the side of the road, shook his head and said, "I didn't see clearly." "I can see clearly. He doesn't have a magic wand in his hand. Hell, he was just behind him. Why suddenly ran in front of us?" When Li Feng opened the portal to the front of the night bus for the 4th time and waved his hand, the night bus finally stopped. With a sigh of relief, Li Feng watched the car door open. The conductor with the hat diagonally leaned against the car door and curiously said, "Sir, can you see the night bus?" "I can't see chasing you." While slandering, Li Feng boarded the Cavalier's bus and said, "Broken Axe Bar, in London." Seeing Li Feng directly board the bus, the conductor knew that the other party was a necromancer, but he was very curious. It is important to know that the purpose of the bus is for those who are uncomfortable with flow fans, or those who are unreliable in phantom shifting ability. Yes, where is Li Feng? Since you can suddenly appear in front of the bus, it means that the opponent has a way to move instantaneously. Why do you still need to take a night bus? After getting on the bus, Li Feng sat on a free bed as fast as he could. He knew that the seat where the conductor stood and the bed were protected by magic to prevent passengers from being thrown out of their seats by inertia when the high-speed bus brakes suddenly. There is no magic protection in the corridors and other places. If Li Feng doesn't want to experience being thrown around by inertia and spit out the overnight meal, the best way is to sit in his seat honestly. Taking advantage of the timing when the bus did not start, the conductor walked to Li Feng to ask for the fare. Li Feng took out a gold Zilong from his pocket and handed it to the conductor. The conductor frowned and said, "Sir, do you have any change?" Li Feng shook his head. The Jin Zilong on his body was taken from the small vault of the Black family, whose gold inventory does not store Jin Zilong but instead stores small denominations such as silver cyc or copper nat. Having said that, in order to make sure that he has enough money to buy various magic materials, Li Feng only has large denominations of Jin Zilong in his eyes. With such a small amount of capacity, it takes watts of brains to install change. The conductor shrugged, took out the change from his pocket and paid Li Feng, then turned back to his seat, and after reporting to the driver where Li Feng wanted to go, the conductor asked curiously, "Sir, where's your magic wand?" "Lost." Li Feng looked out the window and said casually, "Isn't this going to Diagon Alley to buy a new one?" "Sir, I have to remind you that the shops in Diagon Alley are all closed now," said the conductor, who obviously didn't believe Li Feng was talking nonsense. "I'm afraid you want to go to the Broken Axe Bar for a drink. As for the wand, it is probably confiscated by your wife to prevent you from using magic indiscriminately after drinking." Obviously, the conductor is a talkative person, but when the conductor asked Li Feng how suddenly he ran to the front of the bus, the night bus had already stopped at the entrance of the Broken Axe Bar. It can be seen that the night bus should indeed be renamed, and it was almost the same. Li Feng picked up his belongings and smiled and said to the conductor, who was still waiting for an explanation, I will tell you next time when I take the Cavalier bus. After speaking, Li Feng got out of the car and pushed open the door of Poke's bar. The bar door seems to be a simple wooden door, but the sound insulation effect is surprisingly good. As soon as he opened the door, Li Feng knew what is noisy and what is hot business. Inside the bar, the owner Tom glanced at the unfamiliar Li Feng and said, "Sir, what do I need?" "Food," Li Feng said without thinking. "There is still a vacant room." Soon Tom put the food in front of Li Feng and asked, "Sir, what is your name? I seem to have never seen you." Already hungry, Li Feng grabbed the food and took a bite and said, "Austin, I'm here for a trip to London. Unfortunately, my luggage was stolen by the Muggles. I hope they won't use my wand as a deal." I was stunned by his baton. I have used it for many years. Putting down the food, Li Feng looked at Tom with innocent eyes and said, "I can also buy a magic wand in London, right?" Tom nodded, pointed to a door in the distance of the bar, and said, "There is a passage leading to Diagon Alley. When the store in Diagon Alley opens tomorrow, I will show you to open that door. You can go to Garrick." Mr. Ollivander bought a pleasing wand. Li Shenging smiled heartily. "It's done, just wait for the Jinjulong in his pocket to be spent tomorrow." Just as Li Feng had fallen asleep in the soft bed roar, Blake, who was staying at home anxiously waiting for the guests to come, finally heard someone ring his doorbell. Blake opened the door excitedly, and saw that besides the principal of Hogwarts who was waiting, Albus Dumbledore, there was also an old friend he unexpectedly stood outside, Remus John Liu, flat. Blake corrected the sharp haircut that hadn't come in a hurry, and respectfully said to the old man with the gray beard, "Principal Dumbledore, it's nice to meet you." After that, Blake wanted to hug his old friend forward. "I didn't expect to see you here, Moonface." Lupin took a step back with a sneer on his face to show that he didn't want to hug Black. After all, in Lupin's impression, Black was still the murderer of the Harry family and the dwarf Peter. "If it hadn't been for Dumbledore to come to my residence and invite me to become a professor of black magic defense for the next semester at Hogwarts, I really didn't know that you have such a great skill. Caban flees, or this is what he taught you after you take refuge in a mysterious person." Black's mouth twitched, and he shouted frantically, "I didn't betray. I'm not the principal now." Dumbledore saw that Lupin and Blake were full of gunpowder in their speech, and quickly interrupted each other's words, and signaled that Lupin didn't need to be nervous and said in confusion, "When I received a letter from you under your signature." "Very surprised, aren't you, in Azkaban? How did you escape?" "Not the principal." Black was stunned, and while motioning for the two to enter the room, he frowned and asked, "Is it a conspiracy set up by the Death Eaters? I knew Austin had other plans, and I guess he would save me. Coming out is also part of the plan." Entering Black's old house, Dumbledore shook his head slightly and said, "It's nothing to do with the Death Eaters. It's a major event in the school. Some students opened the Slytherin's secret room and released monsters to clean up the Muggle-born students. There are already several people. When I was hurt, the school board decided to expel me to quell the incident." On the side, he hid the wand in his hands, and Lupin, who was always on alert, said, "Let's talk about how you escaped from Azkaban. If you can't convince me, I think the Auror will be happy to put you in Azkaban again. Caban, and I will also apply for permission from the Ministry of Magic to allow the Dementors to perform the Dementor's kiss on you." He couldn't feel the warm hug of his old friend and only heard the mouthful of irony and murderous intent. Blake looked a little helpless. He understood that before he found Peter the little dwarf, he said that he could not wash away his murderous stains. Hearing Lupin talking about the Dementor, Blake remembered why he was looking for Dumbledore and hurriedly said, "I saw a Chinese man named Austin subdue the Dementor in Azkaban. Now the Dementor still obeys the instructions of the Ministry of Magic on the surface, but has actually become Austin's servant." Under the guidance of Blake, the three people walked into the room with the genealogy of Blake, pointed to the genealogy and said, "I am worried that Austin is a Death Eater, and when he saw that he wanted to take me out of Azkaban, he pretended to agree to all his requirements. When he and I return to the old house, I will take the opportunity to detain him in a secret basement and notify you to come." Dumbledore nodded slightly, signaled that he knew it, and looked at the genealogy on the wall with interest, and said, "There is a magic on it. If it weren't for your reminder, I might not have noticed these hidden on the wall." Was the magic of Harry a variant of Theurg loyalty curse, that Harry's parents used to protect the location of his home. Dumbledore could see the secrets of the genealogy at a glance, and Blake was not surprised. After all, Dumbledore was the most powerful necromancer in the magic world in a century. Blake smiled and said, "Only those who write their names on the genealogy are qualified to use their own blood to open the door to the secret room hidden behind the wall, but the shortcomings are also obvious. It only recognizes blood but not people, as long as someone gets it. With my blood, he can still open the secret basement of the Black family. In addition, the house elves and descendants who built the basement can also enter." Dumbledore shifted his gaze from the genealogy to Black, and said, "Tell us about Austin." Blake lowered his head for a moment and thought. After finishing the sentence, he said, "Austin suddenly appeared in Azkaban. At the beginning, he looked for me like a wealthy fan in Azkaban, telling me to hide from the little dwarf. The news of where was the reason for me to spend money to buy, but when I found me it happened to be the time when the Dementors were eating, and there was confusion in my mind at the time, so I didn't ask much where the little dwarf was. Originally, when the Dementor came in, I thought he would escape alone. After all, no one wants to get close to the Dementor, but..." Black continued, with some confusion and horror in his eyes, "In the beginning, I just seeing him cast 2 spells, one to kill the Dementor on the spot, and the other to give the Dementor a Dementor's kiss. Finally, he was in front of me forcibly cast spells on all Dementors, turning the Dementors into his pets." At the end, Blake said with some confusion and horror, "I found that his magic power is very small compared to adults, but he never used a magic wand when casting spells. Some spells only have a few simple gestures. To silently cast spells. In the magic world, being able to perform silent spellcasting is already great, and achieving magical wandless spellcasting is even more of a leader in the magical world." For this, Blake was puzzled and confused. Lupin only thinks that Black must have been sucked away by the Dementors' too much happiness. He is crazy. Even making up a story is full of holes. When will people with less magic power dare to face the Dementors, let alone kill them? It's a Dementor, you know, there is no record of a Dementor being killed in the magic world. But Dumbledore thought more and said, "Are you sure he told you about Peter Pettigrew?" Seeing Black nodded affirmatively, Dumbledore smiled and said, "Except for Austin's subduing of the Dementors, the news of Pettigrew appears. Is this the reason you are asking me for help? If all of this is true, then it means that we have wronged you. After I find Dwarf, I will apologize to you. Now I will open the basement entrance and let me have a good chat with this Austin." Opening the basement entrance, Dumbledore just wanted to walk into the arch, and Lupin on the side said, "Professor Dumbledore, let Black go first." Blake looked at Lupin in a daze, and said with a face of self-deprecation, "You still don't believe me, don't I even have a wand now? What is the difference between a necromancer without a wand and a muggle? With Dumbledore's strength, should I be afraid of my trap? Do you look down on Dumbledore or look me up?" Lupin wouldn't let his guard down just because Blake didn't have a magic wand. He sneered and said, "Did you get the trust of James and Lily in the same way? It's a pity that you sold them to mysterious people in a blink of an eye. Can you sleep peacefully at night? Or your conscience was eaten by a dog? Oh, sorry, your animagus is a dog. You might have become a wolf-hearted villain long ago." Blake panted quickly, and finally after a few deep roar inhalations, he looked at Lupin calmly, shook his head and expressed disappointment with his old friend, and turned and walked into the archway, saying, "It should have been early just the little dwarf of death, I'm explaining it to you." Dumbledore walked to Lupin's side, put his right hand on Lupin's shoulder, and said, "Just because Blake escaped from Azkaban, he didn't hide. Instead, he immediately contacted me and told me about the Dementor. I believe Blake was on his body. The charge was framed." After speaking, Dumbledore walked into the basement behind Black. At the moment there is no trace of Li Feng in the basement. In addition to the obvious messy footprints on the ground, only the same messy small vault proves that someone has actually come to the basement. In addition, the 3 people didn't even find a cockroach in the basement. Lupin glanced around, looked at Black with a sarcasm, and motioned to the other party to explain, "What is meant by Austin being held in the basement? Are you holding a mass of air named Austin?" Just as Lupin was about to make fun of Blake's lie so quickly discovered, Dumbledore walked to the cubicle where the experiment table was placed, looked at the dust mark left by Li Feng's locket, and said, The footprints on the ground do not match Blake's, so someone here has just been here, and Austin not only took Jinj along, but he also took something on the experimental table. As if thinking of something, Dumbledore squinted his eyes, pointed to the old House of Black, and said, "Mr. Black, you said you think Austin took you away from Azkaban because of another plan, so can he guess? Will you return here after you leave Azkaban?" Blake walked to the experiment table, touched the experiment table and said, "This is the only hiding place I can think of to escape the hunt of the Ministry of Magic." "Professor, are you saying that Austin's goal is something on the experiment table?" Dumbledore nodded slightly and said, "If he really has another picture, do you know what he took?" Blake shook his head and said, "I have forgotten how many years I haven't returned to the old house. I don't know what is left in the old house, but I think someone knows." After speaking, Blake shouted, "Creature, come out." As soon as he finished speaking, Creature appeared in front of Black in an instant, and said respectfully, "What's the command of the Little Master? I live to serve the Black family." After speaking, Creature lowered his head, as if no one was around. One side said to himself, "The dirty British stepped on the dirty carpet again." Blair was no stranger to Creature's neuroticism, pointing to the experimental table and saying, "Tell me what was originally on the experimental table." Originally, Creature realized what, and hurriedly jumped to the test table to take a look, and said with a weeping voice, "Thief, Creature hasn't destroyed it yet, let down the master. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more."